In the stillness of night, when the world quiets and your body surrenders to rest, something deeper begins to stir. This is not the noise of anxiety or the hum of the day's distractions. It is the whisper of your true self. This voice, calm and constant, has waited patiently beneath all your noise to be heard. Now, under the cloak of darkness and with breath as your anchor, you begin again. This is the time to listen. Comment below, "I accept what is," if you join me in this intention. You are not here to be entertained or distracted. You are here to remember what matters, what is real, what you can control. Tonight we walk beside Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca, not as followers, but as fellow travelers. Their words are not commands, but echoes of the same wisdom you hold inside. They speak so you can remember what you already know. You were never promised ease. Life is not meant to be soft. It is meant to sharpen you, to break what is false and leave what is real. Each struggle, each disappointment, each quiet heartbreak has carved into you a deeper space that now must be filled with clarity, not comfort, not hope, clarity. Because only with clarity do you become unshakable. Do not wait for peace to find you. You must create it in the furnace of each decision. Peace is not the absence of chaos, it is the refusal to be moved by it. When the winds rise, the Stoic stands rooted, not because he is numb, but because he has trained his soul to hold its shape. He knows what is his to carry and what must be dropped. It starts here, with this breath, with this moment. You do not need more time, more answers, more perfection. You need to return to yourself, to that still core where nothing outside can touch you. The storms can rage, the people can speak, the future can remain uncertain. And still you can stand. You can sleep. You can let go. Everything you fear losing, control, status, praise, even love, none of it truly belongs to you. It was never yours. Not really. What you do have, what no one can take, is your ability to respond, to choose how you see, how you act. That is the one true possession. Guard it fiercely. The Stoics taught that there is only one real division in life: the things you can control and the things you cannot. Nothing else matters. If it is within your control, your thoughts, your actions, your values, then take full responsibility for it. Own it completely. If it is outside your control, other people's opinions, the past, your health, the outcomes, then release it. Let it fall away like autumn leaves from a tree. This isn't weakness, this is strength. The strength to stop fighting what is. To stop pretending you are a god in a world of shifting fate. You are a part of nature, not above it. You are not owed understanding or fairness or ease. What you are owed is your own effort, your own integrity, your own practice of reason. There will be pain, there will be fear, but neither defines you. What defines you is what you do with them. You can resist, complain, collapse, or you can face, accept, transform. The Stoic does not wish for hardship, but when it comes, he meets it like an old friend, not because he enjoys it, but because he knows it is the only path to growth. Seneca wrote that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. How many nights have you lost to worry? How many moments have you poisoned by anticipating pain that never arrived? Let tonight be different. Let tonight be a return to what is, not what if, not what was. What is. There is no peace in the past. There is no control in the future. There is only this: your breath, your body, your awareness. That is enough. That is always enough. And when it feels like it isn't, that's a sign you've stepped outside your control. Return. Again and again return. You are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are not your failures. You are the space in which all of those rise and fall. You are the one who sees. And if you can see clearly, you can choose clearly. And if you can choose clearly, you can live without regret. The Stoics do not demand perfection. They demand honesty. Are you living by your values? Are you being ruled by externals? Are you still blaming the world for your unrest? These questions are not to shame you. They are to wake you, to call you home, because home is not a place, it is a principle. Tonight, you return home, not by escaping the world, but by releasing your grip on it, by accepting it as it is, not as you wish it to be. That is the essence of Stoicism, not indifference, not coldness, but radical alignment with what is real, what is unshakable. Your breath is real, your choice is real, your response is real, everything else is fleeting, beautiful perhaps, important even, but still fleeting. Do not anchor your soul to things that drift. Anchor it to what you know to be true, no matter the storm. So sleep now, not to escape, but to rest in truth. Let the teachings settle into your bones, not as ideas, but as anchors. You are not helpless. You are not broken. You are a mind capable of choosing how to live. That is a miracle. Treat it like one. And when you wake, do not forget this. Do not rush back into the noise. Begin your day with the same clarity with which you end your night. Ask yourself, what is in my control? What does virtue require of me today? What would Marcus do? What would I do if I were brave? Your life is not measured in achievements or applause. It is measured in moments of clarity, in breaths taken with intention, in the refusal to be anything but aligned. That is the mark of the Stoic. That is the mark of the free. Now close your eyes if you haven't already. Let the words fade and the silence return. Trust that what needed to be heard has been planted. You do not need to hold it. You need only to rest in it. Let go, let go, let go, and sleep, not because the day defeated you, but because you stood firm in it. Sleep, not as escape, but as restoration. Sleep because tomorrow you will begin again, not from scratch, but from strength. You are not late. You are not behind. You are exactly where you must be to practice. This is the way. Walk it with dignity. Walk it with discipline. Walk it with love for the truth. And whatever comes, remember, you are free. You are still here, listening, breathing. That in itself is enough. In a world obsessed with progress, output, and spectacle, it is easy to forget that being is already a miracle. To simply sit, to draw breath, to stay with yourself instead of running from yourself. These are acts of courage in a culture of constant distraction. You may feel as though you are doing nothing, as though the stillness is wasted time, but in truth you are tending the soil from which everything else grows. The act of staying, of being present, of not abandoning yourself in the midst of noise. This is where transformation begins. You don't need to do more. This statement strikes against the grain of almost everything you have been taught. From childhood, you were conditioned to believe that worth is earned through effort, that value is proven by productivity, that growth requires constant doing. Yet the deepest changes in life rarely arise from force. They come from attention, from patience, from presence. A seed does not force itself open. It softens, it yields, and in yielding, it grows. Your life is no different. You are not a project to be completed, but a being to be tended. In many ways, doing less, or rather doing with awareness rather than compulsion, is the beginning of true growth. The very act of returning, again and again, is the core of the practice. You wander, you forget, you drift into distraction or impatience or old habits. That is normal. That is human. The power lies not in never leaving, but in always coming back, returning to your breath, returning to your values, returning to the simple truths that anchor you. Each return is a choice, a reaffirmation of who you want to be, a strengthening of the muscle of awareness. Over time, these quiet returns accumulate into resilience. You do not notice the change at first, but one day you look back and realize, I no longer get lost as easily. I return more quickly. My center holds more firmly. This is the slow miracle of practice. Life will try to convince you that transformation is grand, that wisdom is loud. It will parade dramatic stories of overnight success, of sudden awakenings, of life-changing breakthroughs. It will tell you that if your change is not visible, not dramatic, not immediate, it must not be real. But life's deepest truths move more like water carving stone, silently, steadily, shaping everything without spectacle. Real transformation often happens in small, unremarkable moments. The choice to pause before speaking, the breath taken in the midst of stress, the decision to return to your principles when no one is watching. These moments are so quiet they seem insignificant, yet they are the very fabric of wisdom. Wisdom itself is not loud. It does not shout for attention or demand recognition. It grows in silence, in solitude, in practice. It grows in the spaces where you choose patience over haste, reflection over reaction, presence over escape. Because it is quiet, you may doubt it, you may imagine that nothing is happening. But like a tree rooting itself deeper with each season, your soul is establishing its foundations beneath the surface. Others may not see it, you may not see it, but the roots are spreading. And when storms come, you will discover that you stand differently, not because you performed some grand act of transformation, but because you stayed, you practiced, you returned. This is what it means to hold a simple truth long enough to let it change you. Most people graze upon truths like tourists, encountering them briefly, admiring them, then moving on to the next insight, the next inspiration. But truth is not fast food. It is nourishment that requires time to digest. To let a simple truth change you is to stay with it, to revisit it daily, to measure your choices against it, to let it sink beneath the surface of your thoughts into the habits of your life. This is not dramatic work, but it is profound. Over time, the truth stops being an idea you visit and becomes a place you live. A steady breath. This is both a symbol and a practice. Breath is always with you, always available, always present. It does not demand you achieve anything. It asks only that you notice it. To anchor in your breath is to anchor in the present moment, the only place where life actually happens. Each inhale is a receiving, each exhale a releasing. In that rhythm lies a quiet wisdom. You are sustained, not by clinging, but by flow. The breath teaches you to receive without grasping and to let go without fear. Each time you return to it, you practice not only calm, but freedom. Freedom from the compulsive need to be elsewhere, to be other than you are. A quiet remembering. This is the heart of all practice. Remembering who you are beneath the noise. Remembering the values you have chosen, the truths you have discovered, the person you are becoming. Forgetting is normal. The world is designed to make you forget, to pull your attention outward, to convince you that your worth lies in constant motion. Remembering is an act of resistance, but a gentle one. You do not fight the noise. You turn back to yourself. You do not force clarity. You return to the simple truths, over and over, as many times as it takes. This remembering is not dramatic, but it is transformative because it reorients you to what is real. A simple truth, held long enough, will change you. It may be a truth about patience, about kindness, about courage, about impermanence. At first, it seems like just a thought. But if you return to it, live with it, measure your life by it, it begins to work upon you quietly. Like water smoothing stone, it reshapes the rough edges of your reactions, your habits, your judgments. One day, you realize you no longer force patience. You simply are patient. You no longer strive to be kind. Kindness arises naturally. The truth has moved from your head into your heart, and from your heart into your life. This is the real work. Not grand gestures, not sudden awakenings, but the daily return to what matters. You are still here, listening, breathing. That is enough. You do not need to do more. You do not need to achieve enlightenment in a single burst or fix every flaw overnight. You need only to return again and again to the practice of presence, to the truths you already know, to the breath that sustains you. Over time, these quiet acts accumulate into a life transformed. And when you doubt yourself, remember, life's deepest transformations are rarely loud. They are rarely seen. They unfold in private moments of choice and return, in steady breaths and quiet remembering. This is how character is built, how wisdom takes root, how freedom grows. It is not glamorous, but it is real, and it is yours, here, now, in this very breath. The Stoics were not superhuman. They were not immune to loss, fear, or pain. They simply chose to train their minds to see clearly through it, to not let emotion dictate reason, to not let chaos decide character, and most of all, they refused to live by chance. They chose principle. Every day, especially on the hard days, you don't become strong by avoiding discomfort. You become strong by walking into it, eyes open, jaw relaxed, breath steady. The fear you feel now, the ache you carry, the tension behind your eyes, they are not signs that you're failing. They are invitations to go deeper, to see what still holds power over you, and to reclaim it. Every emotion begins with a judgment. Something happens, and your mind decides what it means. That's where the power lies. Not in controlling what happens, but in questioning what you believe about it. Is this bad? Is this unbearable? Or is this just unfamiliar, just uncomfortable, just new? You get to decide the meaning. Always. When you begin to see clearly, you begin to suffer less. Not because pain disappears, but because confusion does. What hurts more than pain is not understanding it, not knowing why it's there, not knowing what to do with it. But if you can say, this moment is part of my path, I accept it, I will use it, then you become unshakable. The Stoic does not reject emotion. He questions it, he investigates it, he welcomes it as a messenger. Anger says, something matters to you. Fear says, there is risk here. Envy says, you've forgotten your own values. Each one can teach if you are calm enough to listen. If you are still enough to see, tonight you are still, you are listening. So let's go deeper. Visualize now a moment from your life that still stings. Not to dwell, but to practice. Hold it gently in your mind. See the people, the setting, the emotion. Now ask, what part of this was in my control? What part was not? And where am I still holding on to what was never mine? Let it go. Whatever it is, let it go. Not because you don't care, but because you care too much to keep carrying something that weighs you down. Carry only what sharpens you. Carry only what is yours, and let the rest fall away, slowly, gently, without drama, just like breath leaving the lungs. Seneca wrote, "He who is brave is free." And bravery, in this moment, means choosing calm when panic is easier, choosing discipline when distraction is tempting, choosing gratitude when bitterness feels justified. That's what makes you free, not circumstances, but choices. Right now, you are practicing freedom. With every breath, every decision to stay here and listen, every act of letting go, you are shaping your soul. Not for tomorrow, for now. Because how you live now is how you live always, and what you do in stillness will echo in motion. There is no finish line, no moment when you become fully stoic, perfectly wise, or entirely at peace. There is only the practice, the return, the act of showing up again and again for what is real, what matters, what leads you to a higher self even when it's inconvenient. Do not believe the lie that says you must wait to begin, that you need more healing, more confidence, more clarity. Begin now. Begin confused. Begin uncertain. Begin afraid. Because the act of beginning is what creates all the things you think you need first. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself every morning, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think. This isn't about fear of death, it's about clarity of life. You don't have forever. That is not sad. That is liberating. You don't have time to live someone else's values. What if you let go of the image you're trying to keep up? What if you drop the need to be admired, validated, understood? What if your only goal was to live in harmony with your own reason, with nature, with truth? That is Stoic freedom. That is dignity. As your body softens into sleep, let your mind rise into awareness. Ask yourself, what do I truly value? What am I living for? What am I willing to suffer for? Because the Stoic does not avoid suffering, he assigns it purpose. He chooses what is worth it and lets the rest fall away. This is not about control, it's about surrendering to reality and then choosing your response with precision, with love, with character. You are not powerless in a chaotic world. You are powerful in how you face it. And that power comes not from effort but from presence. Let your mind be like water, still on the surface, deep in essence. Thoughts may ripple, but your center remains untouched. When insult comes, let it pass through. When praise comes, let it pass through. When fear comes, see it, name it, and let it drift like smoke in the wind. The external world will always change. People will come and go. Opportunities will rise and fall. Your health will shift. Your body will age. But if you anchor in virtue, in wisdom, courage, temperance, and justice, you will always know where you stand. Always. You don't need to impress anyone. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't even need to be understood. You need only to be aligned. When your actions reflect your values, when your words reflect your principles, when your silence reflects your strength, that is enough. Remember, suffering is not the enemy. Confusion is. And clarity is born not from answers, but from presence, from looking at what is, without flinching, without fantasy, and saying, this too I can face. That is the Stoic creed. So sleep, not as escape, but as training. Sleep as renewal. Let this rest become a foundation. Let these words shape your subconscious. Let your mind soak in the truth. You are free, not because life is easy, but because you choose to live by reason, by principle, by truth. No one can take that from you. Not failure, not heartbreak, not loss. Those things will come. But if you are grounded, you will not fall with them. You will feel them, yes, but you will remain whole. And in that wholeness, there is peace no one can give you and no one can take away. Now breathe, deep and steady. Let this final thought guide you into stillness. Nothing outside has power over your soul unless you give it permission. Tonight, withdraw that permission. Reclaim your strength. Reclaim your stillness. Reclaim your sleep. You are here. You are whole. You are home. You are still breathing, still present. That is a victory. So much of life is lost in distraction, in noise, in trying to escape what already is. But not tonight. Tonight, you are here. You are still. You are choosing to be with yourself. That choice alone places you among the strongest. It is not your accomplishments that make you powerful. It is not your titles or your possessions. What makes you powerful is the way you carry yourself when the world doesn't reward you, when no one is watching, when all is quiet, and you still choose integrity, peace, and truth. That is real strength. The Stoics knew this, that most people are asleep while awake, but a philosopher is awake even while asleep. Why? Because he has trained his mind to walk beside reason, even in dreams. And that is what you are doing now, shaping your inner landscape while the body rests. This is not just sleep, it is transformation. There is a part of you that cannot be shaken. You may forget it. You may bury it beneath noise, beneath distraction, beneath the endless urgency of daily life. You may doubt it when storms rise, when losses sting, when people misjudge you or circumstances betray you. But beneath all this, steady and unmoved, there remains something constant. You may call it your center, your core, your soul, your reason. The Stoics called it the logos within, the spark of rational order, the piece of divine reason that connects you to the whole. Whatever its name, it is there, unbroken, unshaken, waiting for you to return. It doesn't panic when plans fall apart. The surface self does. The part of you that wants control, that clings to outcomes, that maps out a future and demands that life obey. This part panics when things unravel. It feels betrayed when effort does not yield the result it expected. But deeper within, the logos does not panic. It knows that plans are only sketches, that the future is always uncertain, that control is never absolute. The rational soul accepts reality as it unfolds because it sees beyond the moment, beyond the narrow window of ego's desire. Where the surface mind says, "This should not be happening," the deeper mind says, "This is happening." Now, what is the right response? That shift alone is the difference between despair and resilience. It doesn't chase applause. The ego craves recognition, and the world fuels this craving by holding up applause as proof of worth. You learn early to measure yourself by praise. Grades in school, approval from peers, recognition in work, admiration from strangers. But the logos is not fooled by this. It knows that applause is fickle, that it can be given or withheld for reasons that have nothing to do with truth. Applause is about others, not about the integrity of your actions. The rational soul does not need it. It finds peace in alignment, in the quiet knowledge that you acted with justice, with honesty, with courage. Applause may come or it may not, but it adds nothing essential. The act itself, done rightly, is its own reward. It doesn't need to prove. How much of life is wasted in proving you are strong, proving you are worthy, proving you are enough? Proving is the endless performance of insecurity, the desperate attempt to convince both yourself and others that you deserve to exist. But the logos does not play this game. It knows that your worth is not in question. You exist, therefore you are already worthy. You breathe, therefore you are already enough. The rational soul does not argue for its place. It simply is. When you let this part of you lead, the exhausting need to prove dissolves. You live not to impress, but to embody, not to persuade, but to practice, not to prove, but to be. That part is the logos within you, the rational soul. It is calm because it sees truth. It is steady because it understands limits. It is quiet because it does not need validation. This is the part of you the Stoics urged you to cultivate, not because it denies emotion or dismisses humanity, but because it harmonizes everything. The rational soul is not cold logic. It is reason aligned with nature, with reality, with the order of things. It honors feeling, but it does not let feeling rule. It acknowledges desire, but it does not let desire enslave. It is the balance point where wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance meet. It watches quietly, calmly. This watching is the heart of its power. The untrained mind is always entangled. It identifies with every thought, every fear, every craving. It says, "I am angry, I am afraid, I am broken." But the rational soul observes differently. It says, "Anger has arisen, fear has appeared, pain is present." It notices without collapsing into identification. And in noticing, it creates space. Space to breathe, space to choose, space to respond. The watching self is not aloof, but aware. It does not flee from experience, but it does not drown in it either. Like a calm witness to the play of life, it holds presence without panic. And when you let it lead, life becomes simple, not easy, but clear. This distinction matters. Simplicity is not the absence of challenge. Life will still bring difficulty, loss, uncertainty, but simplicity means you see what is essential. You see what belongs to you, your choices, your actions, your character, and what does not. You no longer exhaust yourself chasing what cannot be controlled or clinging to what cannot be kept. You devote yourself instead to what is yours to govern. The noise quiets, the distractions fade. What remains is the clarity of a life oriented around virtue. Not easy, but clear. Difficulty remains, but confusion dissolves. You know what is required. Patience in the face of delay, courage in the face of fear, justice in the face of conflict, humility in the face of success. These are not always easy, but they are always clear. The rational soul does not remove hardship, but it reveals the path through hardship. It shows you that even when everything else is uncertain, you can act with integrity. Even when everything else is lost, you still have yourself to govern. This clarity is freedom, and this freedom is peace. The world will tempt you to forget this. It will lure you with applause, frighten you with chaos, seduce you with comfort, distract you with noise. It will insist that peace comes from control, from recognition, from accumulation. And again, you will be tempted to believe it. You will chase, you will panic, you will strive to prove. But each time you remember the logos within you, each time you return to the unshakable core, you will see how empty those pursuits are. You will see that beneath them, steady and waiting, was the clarity you sought all along. And so the practice is simple. Return. Return to the unshakable part of yourself again and again, until it becomes the ground you live from, rather than the refuge you visit. Each return strengthens it. Each act of trust in reason over impulse, in principle over pressure, deepens its hold. Over time, it ceases to feel like something you reach for and becomes something you live from. The logos is not far away. It is already here, already within you, already enough. You are not meant to be unshaken because the world never trembles. You are meant to be unshaken because within you there is a part that cannot be moved. Let that part lead. Life will not be easy, but it will be clear. And clarity, more than comfort, is what allows you to live with strength, with freedom, with peace. You were never meant to control everything. This is a truth that most of us resist, because the human mind craves certainty. It wants the world to bend to its plans, people to conform to its expectations, and life to unfold according to its timeline. And when it does not, when circumstances slip from our grasp, when others act in ways we cannot predict, when fortune turns suddenly, we feel betrayed, as though life itself has broken a promise. But life never promised control. It promised only existence. To demand control over everything is to demand the impossible, and in doing so, we create our own suffering. You were meant to control yourself. That is enough, more than enough. The Stoics and other sages have taught this across centuries. The only true domain of control is your own mind, your own choices, your own actions. Everything else lies beyond your command. And yet within this narrow domain lies an immense power. For what is a life, if not the sum of its choices? What is character, if not the cultivation of thought and decision over time? To control yourself is to direct the one thing that shapes everything else, your response. You cannot control the wind, but you can control the set of your sails. You cannot control the storm, but you can control whether you stand firm or collapse. This is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is strength of the most enduring kind. Control your thoughts, for thoughts are the seeds of action, and actions become habits, and habits shape the entire course of your life. An unguarded thought may seem harmless, but repeated often enough, it can distort the way you see the world. Fearful thoughts breed a fearful life. Resentful thoughts breed a bitter life. grateful thoughts breed a generous life. You cannot stop thoughts from arising, just as you cannot stop the wind from blowing. But you can choose which thoughts you entertain, which you cultivate, which you allow to guide you. This is the first field of control, the soil in which everything else grows. Control your choices. Life presents you with circumstances beyond your command, but within each circumstance is the freedom to choose. The choice may be small, a word spoken with patience instead of anger, an act of honesty instead of deceit, a decision to persist instead of quitting. Or it may be great, a commitment to live by principle even when it costs you, a decision to forgive when vengeance would be easier, a choice to stand firm when fear urges retreat. Each choice is a thread, and together they weave the fabric of your character. You cannot control what others do, but you can control what you do. That is enough to shape the life you live. Control your direction. This does not mean controlling every step or predicting every outcome. It means setting your course according to your values and adjusting as needed when life shifts beneath you. The sailor cannot control the wind or the sea, but he can control the rudder, the sails, the bearing of the ship. Direction is not certainty, it is orientation. When you know who you are and what you stand for, you have a compass. You may be blown off course, delayed, diverted, but you are never truly lost, because you know the direction you must return to. Without this, you drift endlessly, a captive of fortune. With it, you hold your own even in storm. Everything else is weather. This is not dismissal, it is perspective. The world will bring sun and storm, fortune and misfortune, praise and blame. You cannot stop the winds from rising, nor the rains from falling. You cannot prevent the shifting of seasons. To fight against this is futile. To accept it is liberating. Weather can be harsh, but it cannot touch your inner citadel unless you let it. When you accept that everything outside yourself is weather, you no longer take it personally. The storm does not rage against you, it simply rages. The rain does not fall to spite you, it simply falls. What matters is not what the weather does, but what you do within it. Winds may rise, rains may fall, but if you hold your own, you will not be destroyed. Life has always been a field of storms. Some storms arrive slowly, gathering at the horizon until their weight can no longer be ignored. Others strike suddenly, with the violence of surprise, leaving you breathless in their wake. You cannot predict every storm, nor can you shield yourself from all of them. But storms, however fierce, do not decide your fate. What matters is whether you stand or collapse, whether you hold your ground or abandon yourself. The storm does not define you, your response does. This is resilience, not the absence of hardship, but the refusal to collapse beneath it. Too often, resilience is misunderstood as invulnerability, as if strength meant never feeling pain, never being touched by grief, never being shaken by loss. But resilience is not about building walls so high that nothing can reach you. It is about allowing life to touch you deeply without being destroyed by it. To be resilient is to remain human, to feel sorrow, to know fear, to taste failure, and yet to rise again, to keep faith with yourself, to continue moving forward. Hardship is not a violation of life, it is part of it. Resilience is what transforms hardship from a sentence into a teacher. To hold your own is to keep your footing when the ground shakes. There will be times when foundations you trusted crack beneath you. Relationships falter, careers collapse, health weakens, dreams unravel. These moments shake not only your circumstances, but also your sense of self. They tempt you to believe that if the ground is gone, you are gone with it. But to hold your own is to discover that beneath every foundation you built, there lies a deeper foundation still. Your character, your reason, your will. This ground is never lost unless you abandon it. Even when all else crumbles, you can stand upon yourself. To hold your own is to keep your compass steady when the skies darken. In the confusion of hardship, it is easy to lose direction, to wander in despair, to follow any light that promises relief. But the compass of your values remains steady and unbroken. Justice, courage, patience, honesty, these remain true no matter the weather. The challenge is not that the compass fails, but that you forget to consult it. To hold your own is to keep your eyes on it even when visibility is low, even when the path ahead is hidden. You may not know how long the storm will last, but you can know the direction you must continue to walk. To hold your own is to keep your dignity when the world tempts you to abandon it. Hardship often comes with pressure to compromise your values, to lash out in anger, to surrender to bitterness, to betray yourself in order to gain temporary relief. But dignity is the essence of resilience. To maintain dignity is to refuse to let suffering dictate your character. You may be struck down by events, but you refuse to bow to degradation. Even in weakness, you remain noble. Even in loss, you remain whole. This dignity is not pride, but fidelity. Fidelity to yourself, to truth, to virtue. Resilience is not stubborn denial. It is flexible strength. Denial pretends the storm is not real, that pain is not present, that loss does not hurt. But denial is brittle. It breaks when reality presses too hard. Resilience bends. It acknowledges the storm, feels the pain, admits the loss, but it does not surrender its essence. Just as a tree bends with the wind so that it does not break, so too does a resilient spirit adapt without giving up what is essential. Bending is not weakness, but wisdom, for it allows survival without betrayal. The Stoics knew this well. Accept what you cannot change, act where you can, and in this balance lies strength. You may suffer, but you are not ruined. Suffering is part of being human. To suffer does not mean you have failed, nor does it mean your life has lost meaning. It means you are alive in a world that offers both joy and pain. Suffering is not ruin unless you interpret it as such. Many who have suffered deeply have discovered in that suffering the seeds of wisdom, of compassion, of strength. The question is not whether you will suffer, but whether suffering will deepen you or destroy you. The choice, though difficult, remains yours. You may stumble, but you rise again. No one walks steadily at all times. The path of life is uneven, and your steps will falter. You will make mistakes, lose your temper, fall into despair, forget your values. To stumble is not to fail permanently. It is to reveal the need to rise again. What matters is not how often you stumble, but how faithfully you return to your feet. Each rise strengthens the will, each return sharpens the character, each recommitment deepens the habit of resilience. The Stoics never promised that the wise would never fall. They promised only that the wise would not remain fallen. You may lose much, but you do not lose yourself. Fortune may strip away possessions, reputation, relationships, even health, but it cannot touch the inner citadel unless you hand it over. That citadel is your reason, your virtue, your ability to choose your response. Even in prison, Epictetus reminded his students, the will remained free. Even on the throne, Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that all else could be taken, but not his integrity. What you truly are cannot be stolen by fate. It can only be abandoned by your own surrender. Hold fast to yourself, and even in loss, you remain whole. Resilience, then, is not an extraordinary feat reserved for heroes. It is the daily practice of remembering what is yours and what is not. It is the quiet courage of rising each time you fall, of returning each time you wander, of standing firm each time the storm threatens to undo you. It is not glamorous. It rarely wins applause, but it builds a life of dignity, a soul that cannot be broken, a peace that does not depend on fortune. So when winds rise and rains fall, when life shakes the ground beneath you and darkens the skies above, remember, you are not asked to control the storm. You are asked only to hold your own, to remain steady within yourself, to bend but not break, to suffer but not be ruined, to stumble but rise again, to lose much but never lose yourself. This is resilience. This is strength. This is the quiet victory available to you in every moment. This strength is cultivated, not granted. No one is born with perfect self-control or unshakable resilience. These are forged through practice, through the repeated work of focusing on what is yours to control and letting go of what is not. Each time you resist the urge to rage against weather, you grow stronger. Each time you return to your values instead of your impulses, you grow freer. Over time, this becomes a habit, and the habit becomes a character, and the character becomes your freedom. The storms will still come, but they will no longer undo you. And so the paradox reveals itself. By surrendering the illusion of control over everything, you gain true control over yourself. By ceasing to fight the weather, you conserve your strength for the helm of your own ship. By narrowing the circle of control, you expand the depth of peace. You were never meant to control everything. You were meant to control yourself. That is enough. That is more than enough. For in mastering yourself, you discover that nothing outside you can truly destroy you. And what is holding your own? It is not an act of defiance against the world, nor is it an attempt to isolate yourself from others. It is not arrogance, and it is not indifference. To hold your own is to stand in the ground of your integrity, to claim responsibility for your life as it unfolds one day at a time. It is to refuse to scatter yourself into every demand, every expectation, every passing storm of opinion. It is to wake each morning with clarity and courage, not asking what the world owes you or what others should do for you, but asking instead, what is mine to do today? This question cuts through confusion. It reminds you that while much lies beyond your control, much still lies within it. You cannot dictate the choices of others. You cannot command the winds of fortune. You cannot halt the passing of time. But you can govern yourself. You can direct your will. You can choose how you respond to circumstance. And in choosing, you claim authorship over your life. What is mine to do today does not mean, what can I control in the whole universe? But rather, what task belongs to me here and now to be carried out with dignity? When you ask this sincerely, you discover that holding your own is not about carrying the world, but about carrying yourself with steadiness through the world. It is choosing what is right over what is easy. The easy path is always tempting. It promises comfort, approval, and the illusion of quick satisfaction. But easy rarely builds strength. Easy rarely nourishes the soul. Easy often leaves you hollow, regretful, dependent on shortcuts that weaken you. To choose what is right requires courage, for right often demands effort, sacrifice, or solitude. It may draw criticism instead of praise. Yet right is the path that aligns with your deepest values, that leaves you able to look at yourself without shame, that builds a life worth living. To hold your own is to measure yourself not against what is convenient, but against what is true. It is speaking less and listening more. The world is loud with voices, each one clamoring to be heard, each one desperate to declare its position, its grievance, its opinion. To add your own voice endlessly to the noise is to dissipate your strength. But to listen, truly listen, is to draw strength inward, to cultivate patience, to learn. When you listen, you discover not only what others mean, but also what lies beneath their words, their fears, their hopes, their wounds. Listening refines judgment. It tempers impulsiveness. It teaches humility. To hold your own is not to dominate every conversation, but to be present within it, steady enough to hear fully before you speak. It is reacting less and reflecting more. Reaction is immediate, automatic, driven by impulse and ego. It feels powerful, but it is often reckless. Reflection requires pause. It requires the discipline to hold back the first flame of emotion and consider what response aligns with wisdom, with justice, with your values. Reflection does not mean inaction, it means deliberate action. The difference between a life of chaos and a life of clarity often lies in this simple practice. The ability to pause, to reflect, and then to act. To hold your own is to be governed not by the noise of the moment, but by the deeper compass of reflection. It is blaming less and becoming more. Blame is easy. It projects responsibility outward, placing the weight of your life on the shoulders of others, on fate, on circumstance. While blame may soothe pride in the short term, it robs you of power in the long term. For as long as you blame, you deny your own capacity to grow, to act, to change. To become more is the opposite of blame. It is to accept responsibility, not as a burden, but as freedom. If you are responsible, then you are capable. If you are capable, then you are free to shape your life. Blaming less does not mean ignoring injustice, nor does it mean excusing wrongs. It means refusing to waste your energy in bitterness when that energy could be used to build strength, to refine character, to deepen virtue. Holding your own does not mean standing alone against everyone else. It means standing firmly within yourself so that you can stand honestly among others. A person who does not hold their own becomes swept away by every current. The shifting winds of approval, the rising tides of fear, the undertow of comparison. Such a person never discovers who they are, for they are always borrowed from the opinions and desires of others. To hold your own is to resist this scattering. It is to remain rooted, like a tree that bends but does not break, that endures both storm and calm because it is anchored in its own ground. The beauty of holding your own is that it brings both humility and strength. Humility because you accept the limits of your control, asking only what is yours to do and leaving the rest. Strength because what is yours to do, you commit to fully, without excuse, without distraction. This balance allows you to walk through life with quiet confidence. You do not collapse under what is not yours to carry, and you do not neglect what is. You become a person who can be trusted by others, but most importantly, by yourself. This trust in yourself is the foundation of freedom. For what is freedom if not the ability to live according to your own reason, your own principles, your own chosen path? Freedom is not found in escaping responsibility, but in embracing the right responsibility. Each day that you wake and ask, "What is mine to do today?" you reclaim this freedom. You stop scattering yourself into the demands of the world and focus instead on the task that lies within your reach. That task may be humble, it may be unseen, it may be difficult, but it is yours. And in doing it with integrity, you hold your own. Holding your own does not guarantee ease, it does not remove sorrow, nor does it protect you from disappointment. But it does ensure that whatever happens, you are not lost to yourself. You may lose possessions, positions, even relationships, but you do not lose your center. You remain anchored, clear, steady. This is why the Stoics and other seekers of wisdom have always spoken of self-mastery as the highest good. For when you master yourself, not by suppression but by clarity, not by hardness but by alignment, you discover a strength the world cannot take from you. So each day, the invitation remains the same: to wake, to breathe, to ask with sincerity, "What is mine to do today?" And then to do it. Not tomorrow. Not when conditions feel easier. Not when others finally understand. Today, this moment. To hold your own is not to wait for permission. It is to live now with the dignity of one who knows that virtue does not depend on applause, and that strength does not depend on circumstance. The mind, when left untrained, is like an untamed horse, wild, impulsive, dragging you toward every imagined threat. You need only watch your thoughts for a short while to see the truth of this. One moment they gallop toward fear, the next toward anger, then toward desire, then toward regret. The untrained mind does not pause to ask whether what it sees is real. It simply reacts. Like a startled animal, it assumes danger everywhere. It invents threats in shadows, builds mountains out of small obstacles, and carries you away before you have a chance to plant your feet on the ground. This is why life feels so chaotic when the mind is left to its own devices. You are constantly being dragged by a creature that does not yet know how to listen. But when you train the mind, it becomes a loyal companion. Training does not mean suppression, nor does it mean cruelty. Just as a horse is not broken by beating, but guided by patience and steady practice, the mind is not mastered by force, but by discipline. Training the mind means returning again and again to awareness, teaching it to pause before it reacts, to slow down when it races, to examine whether the threats it sees are real or imagined. Over time, the wildness softens. The mind begins to recognize your authority, to trust your guidance, to align with your values rather than drag you into panic. What once ran uncontrolled now moves with purpose. What once resisted you now serves you. It slows down. This is the first sign of training. The untrained mind rushes, rushing to conclusions, rushing to judgments, rushing to fear. It cannot bear silence or uncertainty, so it fills every gap with noise. But through practice, meditation, reflection, deliberate thought, the mind begins to slow. It learns to linger in the present moment, to dwell in what is, rather than sprint toward what might be. Slowness does not mean laziness. It means steadiness. A slow mind is not sluggish, but measured, considering, deliberate. It gives you the space to choose, to act with intention rather than impulse. It listens. At first, the mind resists listening. It prefers to shout its fears and its desires, but training teaches it humility. By bringing your attention again and again to awareness, you teach the mind that it does not have the final word. It learns to listen to reason, to values, to the quiet voice of wisdom beneath the noise. Listening does not silence emotion, but it allows reason to place emotion in context. The trained mind can hear fear without obeying it, can hear anger without being consumed by it, can hear desire without being enslaved by it. Listening makes space for discernment. It obeys. This is the culmination of training, not blind obedience, but alignment. The mind begins to obey your higher self, your reason, your principles. When fear urges you to retreat, the trained mind asks whether retreat is necessary or whether courage is called for. When anger demands retaliation, the trained mind asks whether justice or patience better serves. When desire pulls you toward indulgence, the trained mind weighs whether indulgence strengthens or weakens you. Obedience here is not submission, but partnership. The mind becomes an ally rather than an enemy, a tool rather than a tyrant. This training reveals a profound truth. You are not your emotions. Emotions are powerful, vivid, and persuasive, but they are not the essence of who you are. They are experiences, not identity. They are weather, not sky. You are the one who sees them. You are the one who notices anger rising like a fire, fear creeping like a shadow, joy blooming like sunlight. You are the witness, the observer, the one who can name what is happening without being consumed by it. And more than seeing, you are the one who chooses what to do with them. This is the quiet truth at the center of self-mastery. It is not merely about noticing your emotions, but about deciding how you will act in their presence. Awareness alone is not enough. Awareness opens the door, but choice is what steps through it. Without choice, awareness risks becoming paralysis, a floodlight on every impulse without the strength to direct it. But with choice, awareness becomes freedom. You see what arises within you, and you exercise your authority over it. This is the discipline of a sovereign mind, not to suppress feeling, but to direct action. An untrained mind collapses the space between emotion and action. The gap is so small it's almost invisible. Anger arises, and words of harm are spoken before you can catch them. Fear arises, and you retreat without asking whether retreat is necessary. Desire arises, and you grasp without considering cost. In this way, the untrained mind lives not by deliberate action, but by reflex. It becomes like a puppet moved by invisible strings. Anger pulls, it strikes. Fear pulls, it flees. Desire pulls, it grasps. Each emotion becomes a command rather than a signal. And because life always presents new stimuli, the untrained mind is constantly at the mercy of the next impulse. But a trained mind expands that space. It does not erase emotion. It stretches the pause between feeling and doing. In that pause lies discernment. In that pause you can breathe, you can evaluate, you can choose. A trained mind says, anger is here, but I will not harm. Fear is here, but I will not run without reason. Desire is here, but I will not abandon my values for it. This pause is small, but it is everything. It transforms reaction into response, impulse into intention, compulsion into freedom. It does not make you numb, it makes you free. I feel anger, but I will not harm. This does not mean denying anger, pretending it is not there, or suppressing it into silence. It means acknowledging its presence and then placing it under the guidance of reason. Anger can be a signal, a sign of injustice, a boundary crossed, a value threatened. But left unchecked, it turns from a signal into a weapon. The trained mind asks, what is this anger showing me? What is the just action here? What serves the situation? What honors my values? What leaves me able to respect myself tomorrow? Sometimes the answer is to speak firmly but without cruelty. Sometimes the answer is to wait until the heat cools. Always the answer is to act, not lash out. I feel fear, but I will not run without reason. Fear, too, is a signal. It warns of danger. It protects from harm. But it is not always accurate. It can exaggerate risk, distort perception, paralyze action. The trained mind acknowledges fear without being ruled by it. It asks, is this fear proportionate to the threat? Is the threat even real? If it is real, what is the wise response? Courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act rightly despite it. When you expand the space between fear and action, you give yourself the chance to choose courage over flight. I feel desire, but I will not abandon my values for it. Desire can inspire, it can drive creativity, it can move you toward what is good. But unchecked desire can enslave. It can lead you to betray your own principles, to sacrifice long-term integrity for short-term pleasure. The trained mind does not demonize desire, but it does not obey it blindly either. It considers, does this desire align with my values? Does it strengthen or weaken me? Does it build or destroy? In this way, even desire becomes a teacher rather than a master. This choosing is where freedom lives. Many people think freedom means doing whatever you feel like doing in the moment, but that is not freedom. It is compulsion. True freedom is the ability to pause, to examine, to choose. It is the power to act according to reason, not impulse, to align with principle, not pressure. This is why the Stoics called self-mastery the only true freedom. You may not control external events, but if you can control how you respond to them, you are free in the most essential way. You are no longer tossed about by every emotional wind. You become the helmsman of your own ship. Emotions may visit, but they do not command. They may whisper, but they do not dictate. This reframing changes your relationship to your inner life. Emotions are no longer threats to be suppressed or tyrants to be obeyed. They are guests. Some bring gifts, insight, energy, motivation. Others bring challenges, confusion, temptation, distraction. But all are temporary, all are passing. You welcome them, you listen, you learn, but you do not surrender your sovereignty. You remain the host, not the hostage. You hold the authority to decide how to act. This authority is your birthright as a rational being. No one else can live your life for you. No one else can make your choices. Even when external freedom is limited, even when circumstances constrain you, the freedom of choice within you remains. This is why the Stoics taught that no one can harm your will without your consent. They can harm your body, your reputation, your fortune, but not your power to choose your own response. This authority cannot be stolen, it can only be abandoned. To live this way is to practice a quiet form of heroism. It does not win applause because it is invisible. No one sees the moment you pause instead of reacting. No one notices the temptation you decline, the fear you face, the desire you master. But each of these small acts strengthens your character, builds your freedom, and shapes your life. Over time, they accumulate into a dignity that cannot be faked. You become someone who can be trusted by others, but most importantly, by yourself. This practice will not make you flawless. You will still feel anger, fear, desire. You will still act impulsively at times, but each time you remember, each time you return, each time you pause and choose instead of react, you grow. You lengthen the space between stimulus and response. You strengthen the habit of sovereignty. You build the muscle of freedom. This is the slow work of transformation, the quiet work of becoming your own master. And in this mastery lies peace. Not because life stops challenging you, but because you no longer add unnecessary suffering to its challenges. Not because emotions disappear, but because you no longer mistake them for commands. You discover that freedom was never the absence of feeling, but the presence of choice. You discover that strength was never the suppression of emotion, but the wise guidance of it. You discover that dignity was never about perfection, but about persistence, the willingness to choose again and again until virtue becomes your nature. So when anger arises, when fear appears, when desire beckons, remember, you are not their servant. You are their steward. You may listen, but you decide. You may feel, but you choose. This choosing is where freedom lives, and freedom, once cultivated, is a strength no storm can take from you. And finally, you are the one who lets them pass. This is perhaps the most liberating truth. Emotions, no matter how overwhelming, are temporary. They surge, they peak, they fade. The storm that feels unbearable in one moment will eventually exhaust itself. To believe otherwise is to cling, to identify, to become entangled. But when you see clearly that emotions are transient, you no longer fear them. You can allow them to move through you without resistance, knowing they will not stay. The trained mind does not suppress emotion, but allows it to pass like weather through the sky of awareness. This does not mean that emotions are enemies. They are part of your humanity, part of the richness of being alive. Fear protects, anger defends, desire inspires. But when they rule unchecked, they distort and destroy. Their power must be balanced by judgment, by reason, by discipline. The Stoics did not seek to eliminate emotion, but to master it. Mastery does not mean numbness, it means harmony. It means that emotion has a voice, but not a throne. The training of the mind is lifelong. Just as a horse requires continual care, continual guidance, continual practice, so too does the mind. You will never reach a point where it no longer needs attention, but this is not discouragement, it is invitation. Each day offers you a chance to practice, to slow down, to listen, to choose, to let pass. Each day you can return to the work, knowing that even if you stumble, the practice itself is progress. And in this practice lies freedom. The freedom not to be dragged by every impulse. The freedom not to believe every story the mind tells. The freedom not to collapse under the weight of passing storms. The freedom to live with clarity, with dignity, with strength. When the mind becomes your companion rather than your captor, life itself changes. You no longer fear the rise of emotion, because you know it does not define you. You no longer dread the unpredictability of thought, because you know you can guide it. You no longer mistake impulse for destiny, because you know you can choose. So when the mind races like a wild horse, do not despair. See it for what it is, untrained, not unworthy. And when you practice, patiently, steadily, consistently, you will see it change. You will see it slow down, listen, obey. You will see it become a loyal companion, carrying you not into panic, but into peace. And you will remember again and again that you are not your emotions. You are the one who sees, who chooses, who lets them pass. That is your strength. That is your freedom. Seneca said, "We suffer not from the events in our lives, but from our judgment about them." These words cut to the core of human experience, because they reveal that most of our torment is not imposed by fate, but created in the mind. Events in themselves are neutral. They are movements in the great unfolding of life, neither blessing nor curse, until we place them under the lens of interpretation. Yet how quick we are to judge, to weave a story around what has happened, to assign meaning that multiplies our pain. A delay occurs, and we declare it failure. A goodbye is spoken, and we call it rejection. A challenge appears, and we whisper to ourselves that we must be cursed. In doing so, we hand away our peace, not to the event itself, but to the story we tell about it. How much peace have you lost by telling yourself a false story about what something meant? The meeting that was postponed. Did it truly mean you were forgotten? Or was it simply postponed? The friendship that ended. Did it truly mean you were unworthy? Or did it mean that lives took different paths? The obstacle you faced, did it truly mean that life singled you out for cruelty? Or was it simply another step in the training of your soul? Again and again, the mind rushes to close the gap of uncertainty with a story, and in doing so, it forges chains out of illusions. The suffering that follows feels real because the story has been believed. Yet beneath it, the event itself sits quietly, stripped of judgment, asking nothing, meaning nothing more than what it is. A delay doesn't mean failure. Life rarely runs on our preferred schedule. To be delayed is not to be denied. A seed delayed in sprouting is not a failed seed. It is simply operating on its own timetable. When you declare delay to be failure, you poison your own patience and smother your own hope. You turn time, which could be an ally, into an enemy. But if you see delay for what it is, a pause, a rearrangement, a natural rhythm, then it ceases to wound you. The project delayed may be preparing you for more readiness than you realize. The answer postponed may carry lessons in patience that deepen your character. The detour may introduce you to paths you would never have seen otherwise. Delay is not failure. It is simply life reminding you that you are not its master, but its participant. A goodbye doesn't mean rejection. People enter and leave your life according to their own journeys. To interpret every departure as rejection is to make yourself the center of a story that is larger than you. Sometimes a goodbye comes because another person must walk a different path, must follow their own growth, must respond to their own calling. Sometimes it comes because the connection has run its natural course, not because you were unworthy, but because the season has ended. To label goodbye as rejection is to close the heart in bitterness. To see it instead as change is to leave room for gratitude. Gratitude for what was shared, gratitude for what was learned, gratitude for the chance to continue walking, even if on separate roads. Goodbye is not rejection, it is movement, and movement is the essence of life. A challenge doesn't mean you're cursed. Difficulty is not a punishment, it is an inevitable part of existence. To live is to be tested, to be stretched, to be refined. When you interpret every challenge as evidence that life is against you, you turn trial into torment. You make yourself a victim of fate instead of a student of it. The Stoics remind us that obstacles are not merely hurdles, but opportunities for practice, for patience, for courage, for creativity, for resilience. To face a challenge is not to be cursed, but to be invited. Invited to grow stronger than you were, to see more clearly than you did, to live more deeply than you had. The mountain that rises before you is not a curse laid upon you. It is a chance to climb. Look again. This is the key. Events will happen. Delays, goodbyes, challenges, surprises, losses, victories. Each one arrives raw, without meaning, until you assign it one. The first story you tell yourself may not be the true one. It may be shaped by fear, by old wounds, by habit, but you are not bound to your first judgment. You can pause. You can breathe. You can look again. You can ask yourself, what is the fact, and what is my story about the fact? You may discover that much of your suffering lies not in the fact itself, but in the story you attach to it. And if that is the case, you have the power to choose again. Choose again. This is the freedom that Stoicism offers. The freedom to revise your judgment, to reinterpret your experience, to reframe the meaning of what happens. It does not ask you to deny reality, only to see it more clearly. It does not ask you to pretend that loss is joy or that pain is pleasure. It asks you to strip away the false stories that magnify suffering and to choose interpretations that align with truth, with virtue, with resilience. To choose again is to reclaim authorship of your life. It is to refuse to let the first reaction write the final script. This practice requires vigilance. The mind is quick to judge, quick to spin meaning out of fragments, quick to assume the worst. But vigilance does not mean harshness, it means awareness. When you notice a story forming, I failed, I was rejected, I am cursed, you can hold it up to the light. Is it true, or is it a projection of fear? Is it the only story possible, or is there another? With practice, you begin to catch the false stories sooner. You begin to replace them with interpretations that strengthen rather than weaken you. Over time, this becomes a habit, the habit of choosing clarity over confusion, peace over panic, wisdom over illusion. And in that habit lies peace. Not peace because life stops giving you delays, goodbyes, and challenges. Those will come as long as you breathe. But peace because you no longer hand your soul over to false stories. You no longer multiply pain with judgment. You accept what is, and you choose your response. You see delays as patience, goodbyes as change, challenges as opportunities. You look again, you choose again. And in doing so, you discover that suffering need not be your constant companion. Peace was always available. It was hidden not in the events of life, but in the way you judged them. Tonight, choose clarity. Choose to look at your past with new eyes, not with shame, not with pride, but with understanding. Everything you've done, every mistake, every win, every loss, it all brought you here. And here is good, here is necessary, here is the only place from which you can begin again. When Marcus Aurelius wrote in his journal, he didn't do it for fame or legacy. He did it to remind himself, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Tonight, his words are yours, not just to hear, but to live. And how do you live them? By practicing, every day, every moment. When you're tired and someone tests your patience, practice. When fear rises in your chest and the outcome is uncertain, practice. When grief washes over you like cold water, practice. Return to what is in your control. Act from there. This is the Stoic way. It is not cold. It is not robotic. It is deeply human. Because it refuses to abandon dignity. It refuses to collapse under chaos. It teaches you to feel everything, but to be ruled by nothing. To let life touch you, shape you, but never destroy you. You were never meant to control everything. This is a truth that most of us resist because the human mind craves certainty. It wants the world to bend to its plans, people to conform to its expectations, and life to unfold according to its timeline. And when it does not, when circumstances slip from our grasp, when others act in ways we cannot predict, when fortune turns suddenly, we feel betrayed, as though life itself has broken a promise. But life never promised control. It promised only existence. To demand control over everything is to demand the impossible, and in doing so we create our own suffering. You were meant to control yourself. That is enough, more than enough. The Stoics and other sages have taught this across centuries. The only true domain of control is your own mind, your own choices, your own actions. Everything else lies beyond your command. And yet within this narrow domain lies an immense power. For what is a life, if not the sum of its choices? What is character, if not the cultivation of thought and decision over time? To control yourself is to direct the one thing that shapes everything else, your response. You cannot control the wind, but you can control the set of your sails. You cannot control the storm, but you can control whether you stand firm or collapse. This is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is strength of the most enduring kind. Control your thoughts, for thoughts are the seeds of action, and actions become habits, and habits shape the entire course of your life. An unguarded thought may seem harmless, but repeated often enough, it can distort the way you see the world. Fearful thoughts breed a fearful life. Resentful thoughts breed a bitter life. Grateful thoughts breed a generous life. You cannot stop thoughts from arising, just as you cannot stop the wind from blowing. But you can choose which thoughts you entertain, which you cultivate, which you allow to guide you. This is the first field of control, the soil in which everything else grows. Control your choices. Life presents you with circumstances beyond your command, but within each circumstance is the freedom to choose. The choice may be small, a word spoken with patience instead of anger, an act of honesty instead of deceit, a decision to persist instead of quitting. Or it may be great, a commitment to live by principle even when it costs you, a decision to forgive when vengeance would be easier, a choice to stand firm when fear urges retreat. Each choice is a thread, and together they weave the fabric of your character. You cannot control what others do, but you can control what you do. That is enough to shape the life you live. Control your direction. This does not mean controlling every step or predicting every outcome. It means setting your course according to your values and adjusting as needed when life shifts beneath you. The sailor cannot control the wind or the sea, but he can control the rudder, the sails, the bearing of the ship. Direction is not certainty, it is orientation. When you know who you are and what you stand for, you have a compass. You may be blown off course, delayed, diverted, but you are never truly lost because you know the direction you must return to. Without this, you drift endlessly, a captive of fortune. With it, you hold your own even in storm. Everything else is weather. This is not dismissal, it is perspective. The world will bring sun and storm, fortune and misfortune, praise and blame. You cannot stop the winds from rising, nor the rains from falling. You cannot prevent the shifting of seasons. To fight against this is futile. To accept it is liberating. Weather can be harsh, but it cannot touch your inner citadel unless you let it. When you accept that everything outside yourself is weather, you no longer take it personally. The storm does not rage against you, it simply rages. The rain does not fall to spite you, it simply falls. What matters is not what the weather does, but what you do within it. Winds may rise, rains may fall, but if you hold your own, you will not be destroyed. This is resilience, not the absence of hardship, but the refusal to collapse beneath it. To hold your own is to keep your footing when the ground shakes, to keep your compass steady when the skies darken, to keep your dignity when the world tempts you to abandon it. Resilience is not stubborn denial, it is flexible strength. Just as a tree bends with the wind so that it does not break, so too does a resilient spirit adapt without surrendering its essence. You may suffer, but you are not ruined. You may stumble, but you rise again. You may lose much, but you do not lose yourself. This strength is cultivated, not granted. No one is born with perfect self-control or unshakable resilience. These are forged through practice, through the repeated work of focusing on what is yours to control and letting go of what is not. Each time you resist the urge to rage against weather, you grow stronger. Each time you return to your values instead of your impulses, you grow freer. Over time, this becomes a habit, and the habit becomes a character, and the character becomes your freedom. The storms will still come, but they will no longer undo you. And so, the paradox reveals itself. By surrendering the illusion of control over everything, you gain true control over yourself. By ceasing to fight the weather, you conserve your strength for the helm of your own ship. By narrowing the circle of control, you expand the depth of peace. You were never meant to control everything. You were meant to control yourself. That is enough. That is more than enough. For in mastering yourself, you discover that nothing outside you can truly destroy you. As you rest, let these truths wrap around you like a soft blanket. Let them settle not just in your mind, but in your body, in your breath, in your bones. Let the part of you that knows deeply that this is the way wake up while the rest of the world sleeps. Right now, everything you need is already within you. This truth may feel difficult to accept because the world has taught you the opposite. From an early age, you were told that you were incomplete, that you must seek endlessly outside yourself for the missing pieces of wholeness. You were told that the next book, the next course, the next teacher, the next opportunity, the next breakthrough would finally make you enough. And so you learned to search outward rather than inward, to chase after wisdom rather than apply the wisdom you already possessed. Yet beneath all the layers of conditioning and noise, there is a quiet, unshakable truth. What you seek has always been within you. The strength, the clarity, the direction, the courage. They are not gifts others can hand you. They are seeds already planted in your own soil, waiting only for you to water them with practice. You don't need another book. Books can inspire, they can illuminate, they can remind you of truths you've forgotten, but they cannot live your life for you. Words on a page remain inert until you act upon them. To treat books as substitutes for action is to mistake the map for the journey. You can memorize every path described, but until you take a single step, you are still standing in the same place. There comes a time when gathering information becomes another form of delay, another way of postponing the harder work of application. The next book may give you new language, but it cannot give you new courage. Only you can cultivate that. By choosing to live what you already know, you don't need another teacher. Teachers, mentors, guides, they have their place. They point you toward what matters. They illuminate blind spots. They offer encouragement. But no teacher can substitute for your own responsibility. To rely endlessly on guidance is to remain a perpetual student, always listening, never practicing. The true teacher within you is experience, the lessons you gather by applying principles in the real, unfiltered laboratory of life. Reflection on your own choices will teach you more than years of passive listening. At some point, You must stop waiting for instruction and begin embodying what has already been taught. The greatest honor you can give to any teacher is not admiration, but application. You don't need another breakthrough. The desire for breakthroughs is often disguised impatience. We crave a moment that will instantly transform us, that will erase years of struggle, that will make the work ahead unnecessary. But life does not bend so easily to dramatic revelation. True transformation is usually subtle, slow, the accumulation of small choices made faithfully over time. The breakthroughs you seek are not found in lightning strikes of insight, but in steady practice, in living by principles when it is inconvenient, in returning again and again when you falter. If you look honestly, you already know enough. The principles that lead to peace, strength, and meaning are not mysterious. What is missing is not knowledge, but consistency. What you need is stillness. Stillness is not laziness, nor is it withdrawal from life. It is the deliberate act of pausing the constant motion of thought, of allowing your restless mind to settle long enough for clarity to emerge. In stillness, you stop reacting and begin perceiving. You begin to notice the deeper truths you already carry, but could not hear over the noise. Stillness allows you to distinguish between the voice of fear and the voice of wisdom, between impulse and intention. It is the clearing in the forest where the path becomes visible again. Without stillness, you're always rushing, always distracted, always chasing. With stillness, you see that much of what you thought you lacked was already within your grasp. You need silence, not merely the absence of external sound, but the quieting of internal noise, the endless chatter of comparison, judgment, and self-doubt. Silence is where you rediscover your center, where the truths that cannot be spoken in words make themselves known. In silence, you encounter yourself without disguise, without performance. It is uncomfortable at first, because silence reveals all that you have tried to avoid. But if you remain, if you dwell in it, you will find that silence also reveals strength, clarity, and peace. In silence, you realize that the answers you kept searching for were already present, waiting for you to listen. And above all, you need a fierce commitment to applying what you already know. Knowledge without application is weight without strength. It sits heavy in the mind, but does not transform the soul. You already know that kindness matters more than cruelty, that patience is stronger than haste, that discipline builds freedom, that honesty frees the heart, that gratitude enriches the spirit. You already know that your time is finite, that your choices shape your character, that integrity is worth more than applause. None of this is hidden from you. The question is not whether you know it, but whether you live it. Commitment is the bridge between knowledge and transformation. Without it, wisdom remains a theory. With it, wisdom becomes your life. To live by your values, this is the work. Not tomorrow, when conditions feel easier. Not after you read one more book, attend one more seminar, hear one more inspiring story. Now, the present moment is the only field in which life unfolds. Tomorrow is a mirage, always out of reach. The habits you postpone for tomorrow are only strengthened by delay. To choose your values now in this moment is to reclaim your life from the endless postponement of someday. Every breath you take is an opportunity to live with integrity, to embody what you already know is right. You do not need to wait for the perfect conditions. The only condition required is your willingness to begin. This willingness is freedom. Freedom from the illusion that salvation lies outside you. Freedom from the endless chase of new knowledge. Freedom from the fear that you are not yet ready. You are ready because you are alive. You are breathing. You have values, however imperfectly you live them. And each moment offers another chance to align with them. Freedom is not the absence of difficulty, but the presence of choice. You cannot choose what life brings, but you can choose how you meet it. That choice, made again and again, is the essence of living by your values. This path does not promise comfort. It will demand effort. It will expose weakness. It will confront you with your own inconsistencies. But it also offers something no book, teacher, or breakthrough can: dignity. The dignity of living honestly, the dignity of trusting yourself, the dignity of knowing that your life reflects your principles. This dignity does not need applause, for it is its own reward. It is the quiet strength of a person who no longer waits to begin living, who no longer chases illusions of completion, who has discovered that enough was always already within. So let yourself be still, let yourself be silent, let yourself be fiercely committed to living by your values. You do not need to become someone else. You need only to return to yourself. You do not need to keep searching. You need only to begin. Not tomorrow, now. There will be days when you forget. This is inevitable because you are human. Memory is fragile, and discipline is not a permanent state, but a practice renewed each day. No matter how deeply you study wisdom, no matter how sincerely you commit to your values, there will be mornings when you rise and drift back into old ways, when irritation over small things overwhelms your judgment, when your mind leaps into fear or anger before you even notice. Forgetting does not mean failure. Forgetting simply means you are alive, and to be alive is to wrestle constantly with the limits of attention and the pull of habit. There will be days when you stumble. Stumbling is not weakness, but part of the path. No traveler has ever walked a difficult road without tripping over stones. No student of virtue has ever lived without contradiction. The stumble may come in the form of words you wish you had not spoken, choices you wish you had not made, impulses you wish you had resisted. The pain of stumbling is real, but it does not mean the journey has ended. It only means you must rise again, a little wiser, a little steadier, a little more aware of where the stones lie. There will be days when old habits call to you like sirens. Habits formed long ago do not vanish simply because you have decided to live differently. They linger in the corners of the mind, whispering their familiar promises: comfort, escape, ease, relief. Like the sirens of myth, they sing with beauty but lead to ruin if followed blindly. The pull of these habits may feel discouraging, as if you have made no progress at all. But their persistence is not proof of failure. It is proof of the depth of their roots, and roots take time to unearth. The call of old habits is part of the journey. The practice is learning not to obey every song. That's normal. This is what must be remembered. The Stoic does not seek perfection. He does not imagine a life in which he never falters, never feels anger, never feels fear, never makes a mistake. Perfection is a fantasy, and to chase it is to condemn yourself to despair. The Stoic seeks not perfection, but progress. He understands that the standard is not flawlessness, but fidelity. Fidelity to returning again and again to the practice of virtue. He expects to be tested, to be challenged, to be pulled off course. What matters is not that he is never moved, but that he returns each time to the path. He seeks return. This is the essence of Stoic practice, the willingness to begin again. When he forgets, he remembers anew. When he stumbles, he steadies himself and takes the next step. When the sirens call, he notices their song but does not surrender his ship to them. The Stoic does not define himself by the fall, but by the return. Each return is a triumph, even if it must be repeated 1,000 times. For the act of returning is the act of choosing to align again with reason, with virtue, with clarity. And in choosing, he grows stronger. He starts again, as many times as it takes. This is the true discipline, not the illusion of perfect mastery, but the resilience of renewal, the courage to start again after failure, the humility to admit error and correct it, the perseverance to keep rising when weariness whispers that it would be easier to stay down. Starting again is not weakness, it is the heart of strength. The one who never falls cannot be admired, for he does not exist. The one who falls and rises again is the true example of endurance. Because falling is human. To feel fear, to feel anger, to feel temptation, to feel despair, these are not signs of failure but signs of humanity. To fall into these emotions, to act from them at times, is part of what it means to live as a human being among uncertainty and challenge. No philosophy, no wisdom, no practice will erase this. The Stoics never promised immunity from human weakness. They promised a way to respond when weakness arises. They promised the possibility of strength within imperfection, of dignity within struggle. Rising is the practice. To rise is to affirm that you are not defined by the fall. It is to say, I am not my mistake. I am not my lapse. I am not my stumble. I am the one who chooses to rise again. Rising transforms failure into training, weakness into wisdom, struggle into strength. Each time you rise, you prove to yourself that you are larger than the moment that pulled you down. Rising does not erase the fall, but it redeems it. The fall becomes part of the story of resilience, part of the evidence of your growth. The rhythm of falling and rising is the rhythm of all human life. The seasons themselves reflect this truth. The death of winter, the renewal of spring, the flourishing of summer, the fading of autumn. Nature itself falls and rises endlessly, and so do we. To demand that you never fall is to demand that you be something other than human, something other than natural. To accept falling and to commit to rising is to live in harmony with the way of things. It is to walk with dignity even in imperfection, to see in every return a new beginning. So when you forget, when you stumble, when the sirens of old habits sing, do not despair. Remember that this is the path. Remember that you are not asked to be flawless, but faithful, not asked to never fall, but to never give up returning. Remember that falling is human and rising is the practice. And each time you rise, you embody the very essence of Stoic strength, the quiet, steady courage of one who knows that no fall is final, that no stumble is the end, that no habit is stronger than the will to begin again. Let yourself be shaped, but not broken. Life will shape you, whether you invite it or not. Every encounter leaves its mark. Every hardship chisels something into your soul. Every joy and every sorrow etches lines of experience across the fabric of your being. To resist all shaping is impossible. You are not stone but clay, and clay cannot remain untouched by time. But there is a difference between being shaped and being broken. To be broken is to collapse, to lose the coherence of your inner self, to be shattered in such a way that you forget your own center. To be shaped is different. Shaping refines, shaping carves, shaping reveals. Shaping makes you more of what you were always meant to be. You cannot stop life from shaping you, but you can choose to let it shape you without destroying you. Let yourself be tested, but not bent. Tests will come in the form of disappointment, temptation, rejection, confusion. They arrive unannounced, sometimes disguised as trivial inconveniences, other times as seismic shifts that shake the very ground beneath your feet. To be tested is not a sign that you are cursed, but that you are alive. The untested life remains shallow, untempered, fragile. But the tested life grows stronger, sharper, more resilient. The danger is not in the test, but in the bending. Bending occurs when you abandon your values under pressure, when you trade integrity for approval, when you surrender principle for comfort. Tests are meant to refine, not to corrupt. Endure them with courage and you remain whole. Fail them and you may bend yourself into shapes that betray your true form. Let yourself be changed, but only in alignment with truth. Change is not optional. You are not the same person you were yesterday, nor will you be the same tomorrow. Growth is a form of change, decay another. The question is not whether you will change, but in which direction, under what influence, Toward what end? Change aligned with truth is transformation. It draws you closer to wisdom, closer to virtue, closer to the self that is hidden beneath illusion. Change misaligned with truth is distortion. It drags you away from clarity, away from integrity, away from the roots that anchor you. To be open to change means to accept that you do not yet know everything, that you are not yet finished. But to change only in alignment with truth means refusing to be swept away by lies, by false promises, by the shallow currents of the world. You are not here to win. This is one of the hardest lessons to accept because nearly every message in the world insists on the opposite. Win the race, win the contract, win the argument, win the attention, win the game. Life is framed as competition, and worth is measured by victory. But victories fade quickly. What you win today can be lost tomorrow, and the applause that crowns you will eventually move on to crown another. If your purpose is only to win, your peace will always be fragile, dependent on outcomes beyond your control. You were not put here to win. You were put here to grow. You are here to grow. Growth is slower, quieter, less visible than winning. It does not always attract applause. It does not always translate into trophies or recognition. But it endures. Growth is the unfolding of your true potential, the deepening of your wisdom, the strengthening of your character. Growth is the movement from fear to courage, from ignorance to clarity, from selfishness to compassion. Growth may look like loss in the world's eyes because it sometimes requires you to give up what others chase. But in truth, growth is the only victory that matters because it cannot be taken from you. It becomes part of who you are. You are here to align. Alignment means bringing your life into harmony with your deepest values, with reason, with the order of nature itself. To align is to cease the exhausting inner war between what you know is right and what you choose to do. It is to let your thoughts, your words, and your actions point in the same direction so that you no longer live divided against yourself. Alignment does not mean ease, but it does mean integrity. It gives you the ability to look at yourself without shame, to walk through life without disguise. When you are aligned, even small acts become profound because they resonate with truth. You are here to remember who you are under all the noise. The noise is constant. It comes from the world, with its endless demands and distractions, its judgments and comparisons. It comes from within, with the mind's chatter, its fears and desires, its stories and illusions. The noise is loud, and it convinces you that you are nothing more than your reputation, your possessions, your roles, your mistakes, your victories. But beneath the noise is something quieter and truer, your essence, the part of you untouched by circumstance, the part of you that existed before the noise and will remain after it. Remembering who you are beneath the noise is the great work of life. To remember is not to discover something new, but to return to what you already are. It is to peel away the layers of falsehood and return to the core of dignity, reason, and virtue that has always been within you. Each moment of stillness, each act of integrity, each refusal to bend under pressure brings you closer to this remembrance. And in remembering, you find peace. Not the shallow peace of external success, but the deep peace of being whole. So let yourself be shaped, tested, and changed. Let life press upon you, but do not let it break you. Let it challenge you, but do not let it corrupt you. Let it alter you, but only in ways that bring you closer to truth. You are not here to accumulate victories that will one day fade. You are here to grow, to align, to remember. And each time you forget, each time the noise pulls you away, you can return. This is the practice, to keep coming back to yourself, to keep choosing growth over victory, alignment over compromise, remembrance over distraction. This is enough, more than enough. For a person who grows, who aligns, who remembers, holds a strength that no storm can shatter, no loss can erase, no noise can drown. And that strength is what makes life not only bearable, but beautiful. Soften your body now. Unclench your jaw. Release your shoulders. Feel the ground beneath you, holding you without demand. There is nothing to fix, nothing to achieve, just the breath, just the moment, just your soul, resting in what is real. Tomorrow may come with its demands, but that is not your concern now. Your only task is to be here, to let go, to be empty of resistance and full of attention. That is Stoic sleep, not numbness, but depth, not escape, but return. This is your citadel. No matter where you are, no matter what is happening outside, this space within you is sacred. It cannot be touched by misfortune. It cannot be stained by the world. Protect it, live from it, and you will never be lost. The practice continues, even now, as you drift. As your thoughts slow, as your body enters deeper stillness, the practice lives in you, silently, powerfully. You are the work, you are the path, you are the keeper of your peace. Let go, let it all go, and fall into rest, not just to recover, but to rebuild. To return stronger, wiser, freer, sleep like a Stoic, breathe like a philosopher, and wake ready to live again, on purpose, with power, without fear. You are enough, you are here, you are free. You've come far already, more than you know. To sit with yourself, to remain present when your mind wants to wander, that is strength. It doesn't look dramatic, it doesn't sound like victory. But in a world that runs from silence, your stillness is rebellion, a quiet, unshakable kind. Now I want you to see something. Close your eyes, if they aren't already closed. Picture yourself standing in a vast open space. It is dusk. The sun has just dropped below the horizon. There is no noise, no urgency. Just air, breath, and the quiet presence of your own body. You are not alone. Around you in the distance stand figures, still, calm, watching. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus. They do not speak, they do not judge, they simply witness you. You are not beneath them, you are walking the same path. They are reminders of what is possible when you live by principle. In this space, you are safe. You are held not by comfort, but by clarity. You don't need to fix anything here. You don't need to prove anything here. You are simply invited to see yourself as you are, to see the thoughts you hold, to let go of what doesn't belong. What is weighing you right now? The question alone invites you into a pause, a moment of stillness in which you can turn inward and take inventory. So often you carry burdens unconsciously, dragging them through the day as if they were part of you, as if the weight were inevitable. Yet much of what burdens you is not the event itself, but the tension of holding it unexamined. To ask what is weighing you is to shine a light into the corners of your mind, to make visible what had been lurking in shadow. Already, the weight lessens when it is named, for naming is a form of honesty, and honesty is the beginning of freedom. Name it quietly in your mind. Is it fear? Fear of what could go wrong, of what might be lost, of how the future may unfold? Fear is common, for the unknown stretches before you with infinite possibilities, and the mind tends to fill that blank canvas with its darkest imaginings. Or is it guilt? The echo of choices you regret, the heaviness of words spoken or left unsaid, the memory of opportunities missed. Perhaps it is anger, a fire smoldering against some injustice, some betrayal, some wound not yet healed. Or envy, that subtle poison that whispers comparisons, convincing you that your life is smaller because another's seems larger. Each of these can weigh on the soul, clouding the present moment, distorting the truth of things. Now ask, is this within my control? This is the decisive question, the one the Stoics return to again and again, for it divides the world into two realms, what belongs to you and what does not. Fear may remind you of dangers ahead, but can you control the future? Not entirely. You can prepare, you can act wisely, but the unfolding of events lies beyond you. Guilt may arise from the past, but can you return there and alter it? You cannot. You can learn, you can apologize, you can resolve to live differently now, but the past is sealed. Anger may burn at the actions of another, but can you control their choices? Never. You can respond, you can set boundaries, but you cannot seize another's will. Envy may ache at the sight of someone else's fortune, but can you control the gifts they have been given or the path they have walked? No. You can only control your response to your own life, your own opportunities, your own choices. Can I act on this with reason? This is the second question. Not everything beyond your control must be released entirely. Some things, though not wholly yours to command, may still invite action. Fear may prompt preparation, and preparation can be reasonable. Guilt may urge confession or reconciliation, and these are within your reach. Anger may reveal injustice, and reason may guide you toward just action without destructive rage. Even envy may teach you where your desires point, urging you to cultivate in yourself what you admire in another. To act with reason means to separate the useful signal from the destructive noise. It means not to be consumed by the emotion, but to examine it, to ask what it is showing you, and then to respond deliberately, guided not by impulse, but by clarity. Or must I release it? This is the final question, and often the hardest. To release does not mean to deny or to suppress. It means to stop clinging to what you cannot change, to stop feeding the thought with endless attention, to allow it to rise and to fall like any wave. Fear of what you cannot control must be released, for to cling to it is to waste life on shadows. Guilt for what cannot be undone must be released, for self-punishment does not redeem the past. Anger that cannot lead to just action must be released, for otherwise it corrodes the soul. Envy that distracts you from your own work must be released, for it keeps your eyes fixed on what is not yours. Release is not passivity, it is wisdom. It is the refusal to wage war against what cannot be conquered. Don't rush, just observe. Observation is the first practice of freedom. To observe without rushing is to resist the urge to fix, to suppress, to explain away. It is to sit quietly and notice. Here is fear, here is guilt, here is anger, here is envy. Brutal. When you observe without judgment, the emotion loses some of its grip. It no longer controls you from the shadows. You become the witness rather than the captive. The witness has space to breathe, space to choose, space to respond. Observation is not a small thing. It is the foundation of all self-mastery, for without observation you cannot discern what is yours and what is not. Whatever arises, do not resist. Resistance often gives strength to what you wish to be free from. When you resist fear, you think of it more. When you resist guilt, you deepen its sting. When you resist anger, it simmers underground, waiting for a chance to erupt. When you resist envy, it hides, only to return disguised. Non-resistance does not mean indulgence. It means allowing the emotion to exist without giving it more power than it deserves. Like clouds drifting across the sky, emotions pass more quickly when you do not chase them or try to push them away. You acknowledge them, you accept their presence, and in doing so you allow them to move through you. Let it show itself fully, then let it fall. This is the rhythm of release. Emotions, like all natural forces, rise and fall in cycles. When you allow them to show themselves, you see them clearly, not as eternal truths, but as temporary states. Anger flares, but it fades. Fear spikes, but it softens. Guilt bites, but it dulls. Envy stings, but it passes. If you let them show themselves, you realize they are not as permanent or as powerful as they appeared. And once you have seen them fully, you can let them fall gently, without drama, without clinging. To let them fall is to trust that your peace does not depend on their absence, but on your relationship to them. This practice is not about eliminating emotion. It is about putting emotion in its proper place. You are not a stone, immune to feeling, nor are you a slave, bound to obey every feeling. You are the one who observes, who chooses, who releases. This is the dignity of being human, not that you can erase all suffering, but that you can engage with it consciously, refusing to let it dictate your life. The untrained mind is dragged endlessly by its emotions. The trained mind acknowledges them, learns from them, and lets them pass. Over time, this practice becomes a way of living. You begin to carry less weight, not because life is lighter, but because you no longer carry what is not yours. You face fear, but you do not live in it. You feel guilt, but you use it to grow rather than to punish yourself. You experience anger, but you channel it toward justice rather than destruction. You notice envy, but you use it as a guide rather than a poison. Each day you ask the same questions. Is this within my control? Can I act on this with reason, or must I release it? And each day you strengthen the muscle of discernment, the habit of peace. And so the invitation remains simple. Pause, observe, let it rise, let it fall. In this simplicity lies profound freedom. For when you stop confusing what is yours with what is not, when you stop clinging to what cannot be held, you discover that peace was never absent. It was always here, waiting beneath the weight you carried. This is the Stoic exercise of reflection. You are walking the inner forum, standing before your own soul and asking, have I lived today as I ought? Was I just? Was I wise? Did I act with temperance? If not, I begin again. Not with shame, but with purpose. That is the way. You are not here to punish yourself for mistakes. This is a truth that must be repeated often, for the human mind has a cruel tendency. It turns the memory of error into a whip and strikes itself again and again with what cannot be undone. A wrong word spoken, a choice regretted, an opportunity missed. These moments replay endlessly, not as neutral recollections but as condemnations. Yet self-punishment does not redeem the past. It does not transform error into wisdom. It only deepens the wound, creating layers of shame where only correction is needed. To live in constant self-condemnation is to carry a burden heavier than the mistake itself. The Stoic knows this, and so he refuses to treat his own errors as eternal sentences. The Stoic does not cling to the past. He remembers it, but only as material for growth. Memory for him is not a prison, but a school. What happened yesterday cannot be changed, no matter how much energy is poured into regret. The arrow has already flown, the words already spoken, the choice already made. To cling to it is to demand that life move backward and life only moves forward. To waste the present in mourning what cannot be altered is to abandon the only place where action is still possible. And so the Stoic learns, then lets go. He extracts the lesson, the kernel of wisdom hidden within the event, and then he sets the event itself aside, leaving it where it belongs, in the past. What happened is a lesson. This is how the Stoic reframes memory. Each mistake becomes data, each failure a teacher. The project that collapsed is not a condemnation, but a reminder to plan differently next time. The harsh word spoken in anger is not proof of permanent weakness, but an invitation to cultivate patience. The missed opportunity is not evidence of inadequacy, but a lesson in attentiveness, in courage, in readiness. Lessons are not always pleasant, but they are always useful when received with humility. To treat the past as a lesson is to transform pain into progress, to ensure that no suffering is wasted. What is happening is a test. every present moment arrives with its own challenge, an impulse to resist, a temptation to indulge, a difficulty to endure, a responsibility to fulfill. The Stoic sees these not as punishments, but as opportunities to practice virtue. A harsh remark tests patience, a setback tests resilience, a disappointment tests perspective. Each moment is a chance to apply what has been learned, to embody wisdom rather than merely admire it. Life does not test you to destroy you, but to refine you. The fire that tests the metal does not hate it. It reveals its strength. In the same way, the events of today reveal your character, not to condemn you, but to give you the chance to shape it. What will happen is unknown. This is perhaps the hardest truth to accept. The future is veiled, always beyond your full grasp, and the mind longs to pierce that veil. It imagines scenarios, both hopeful and fearful, weaving entire stories from fragments. But none of these stories is reality, not yet. The future cannot be controlled, only prepared for. To cling to it is to live in speculation rather than truth. The Stoic acknowledges this with humility. He prepares as best he can, but he refuses to build his peace on predictions. For he knows that to anchor yourself to the unknown is to guarantee turbulence. The future belongs to fortune. What belongs to you is how you meet it. You meet all three the same way, with character. This is the essence of Stoic teaching. The past, the present, the future. Each is approached not with anxiety or clinging, but with the steady compass of character. Character means integrity, the alignment of your actions with your principles regardless of circumstance. It means courage when fear rises, patience when delay tests you, justice when others provoke you, humility when success tempts you. Character is the inner citadel, the unshakable ground within you that no storm can erode. When you cultivate character, you carry with you the one tool that allows you to meet any time, past, present, or future, with dignity. The past tested you, and you learned. The present tests you, and you practice. The future will test you, and you will prepare. But through them all, character is constant. It does not erase difficulty, but it transforms your relationship to it. With character, mistakes are not chains, but teachers. With character, trials are not curses, but training. With character, uncertainty is not terror, but adventure. This constancy is what allows the Stoic to walk through life unbroken. He does not claim control over fortune, but he claims mastery over himself. And that mastery is enough. To punish yourself for mistakes is to forget this. It is to believe that error defines you rather than refines you. But the Stoic remembers, falling is human. Rising is the practice. The past is not a place to live, but a place to learn. The present is not a place to fear, but a place to act. The future is not a place to control, but a place to enter with readiness. And through them all, the measure is not perfection, but character. So when the memory of mistakes arises, do not raise the whip of self-condemnation. Ask instead, what is the lesson? When the trials of the present press upon you, do not curse fate. Ask instead, what virtue is being called forth from me now? And when the future looms with uncertainty, do not demand certainty. Ask instead, what character will I carry with me into what comes? In this way, every moment, past, present, and future, becomes a field for the cultivation of virtue. You are not here to punish yourself. You are here to grow. You are here to align with truth. You are here to live with character so that whatever happens, you remain whole. That is the essence of Stoic freedom. Not freedom from difficulty, but freedom from despair, for no mistake, no trial, no uncertainty can take away your power to live with dignity. Now see yourself walking through your day, your ordinary, imperfect day. Watch how you moved, how you spoke, how you thought. Don't judge. Just notice, When did you act with virtue? When did you stray? What pulled you off course? Who did you try to please? What truth did you avoid? This is not about control, it's about courage. The courage to face yourself, to admit where you were reactive, where you were lazy, where you pretended. And then, instead of spiraling into regret, you realign, quietly, firmly, without delay. That is the Stoic rhythm. Let yourself feel proud of that. Not in a shallow way, the kind of pride that boasts and preens, that needs to be seen and applauded by others. That kind of pride is fragile, brittle, and fleeting. It swells easily, but it also collapses quickly when circumstances shift or when recognition fades. That pride depends on comparison, on measuring yourself against others, on needing to be above rather than simply whole. Shallow pride feeds the ego, but starves the soul. The pride you are invited to feel tonight is of a different kind, deeper, cleaner, freer. It is the pride that comes not from being better than others, but from being truer to yourself. It is the quiet dignity of knowing that you are choosing the harder path, the path of discipline and reflection, the path that builds strength not for display, but for integrity. You are practicing. That word matters. To practice is to recognize that perfection is not the goal, nor is it even possible. Practice accepts imperfection as part of the process. It honors effort more than outcome, direction more than arrival. Too often we measure ourselves by results, by whether we succeeded or failed, whether we won or lost, whether others approved or disapproved. But practice shifts the measure. What matters is not whether you performed flawlessly, but whether you showed up honestly. Did you attempt the work of reflection? Did you make the choice, however small, to pause, to breathe, to respond with intention rather than react with impulse? If so, you are practicing, and practice is the soil of transformation. Every small effort shapes the character, even if no one else notices. You are choosing reflection over reaction. Reaction is the default mode of the untended mind. It flares up without thought, without patience, without wisdom. It is fueled by ego, by fear, by wounds still unhealed. Reaction feels powerful in the moment, but it often leaves regret in its wake. Reflection, by contrast, requires restraint. It asks you to pause, to create a space between stimulus and response, to consider not just what you feel, but who you want to be. This space is the birthplace of freedom. In it, you step out of the prison of automatic reflex and into the dignity of deliberate choice. Reflection does not always make the choice easier, but it makes it clearer. It allows you to align your action with your values rather than with your moods. Every time you choose reflection over reaction, you strengthen your inner foundation. And that is worth deep, clean pride. You are choosing presence over escape. Escape takes many forms: distraction, indulgence, denial, noise. The world offers endless avenues to avoid ourselves, to run from discomfort, to numb what aches. Escape promises relief, but it delivers emptiness because it postpones the work of facing what is real. Presence is more difficult because it requires you to sit with discomfort, to feel what is painful, to acknowledge what is true. But presence also delivers what escape never can: peace. Presence brings you into contact with life as it actually is, not as you wish it to be or as you fear it to be. Presence allows you to see that even difficulty can be endured, even pain can be meaningful, even imperfection can be embraced. To choose presence is to honor reality, to say yes to life in its fullness. This is not easy, but it is noble. This makes you strong, not in the loud, visible way that strength is often portrayed, but in a quiet, resilient way. Strength is not the absence of struggle. It is the ability to stay with struggle without breaking. It is the ability to remain calm in the face of chaos, steady in the face of pressure, compassionate in the face of anger. This strength is not about domination or control, but about endurance and clarity. By practicing reflection over reaction, by choosing presence over escape, you are building this kind of strength. It is the strength of character, the strength of integrity, the strength of being able to trust yourself when life becomes difficult. This makes you free. Freedom is often misunderstood as the ability to do whatever you want whenever you want. But that is not freedom. That is compulsion disguised as liberty. True freedom is self-mastery. It is the ability to choose your response rather than be dragged by impulse. It is the ability to act according to principle rather than pressure. It is the ability to be present with reality rather than fleeing into illusion. This freedom cannot be given by anyone else, and it cannot be taken away. It is yours alone to cultivate. Every time you practice, every time you pause, every time you choose deliberately, you are carving out more of this freedom within yourself. And the more you cultivate it, the less dependent you are on circumstances or approval or control. So let yourself feel proud of that. Let yourself savor the dignity of it, the weight of it, the quiet joy of it. This is not the pride that shouts, it is the pride that whispers. It does not need to be displayed because it is complete in itself. It is the pride of having acted in accordance with your own highest values, even if no one saw, even if no one applauded. It is the pride of walking the path of virtue for its own sake, not for reward. And this pride, unlike the shallow pride of ego, does not isolate you from others. It connects you more deeply because it makes you more honest, more compassionate, more grounded. The journey will continue. You will stumble. You will fall back into reaction, into escape, into old habits. But each time you return, each time you practice again, you prove to yourself that growth is possible, that you are not bound by your past, that you are capable of becoming more aligned with truth, with presence, with freedom, and each return is worthy of pride, not because it makes you perfect, but because it makes you sincere. Sincerity, persistence, practice, these are the true marks of strength. So as you rest tonight, hold this pride close, not as armor but as light. Let it remind you that you are on the path, that you are choosing what many do not, that you are building a strength that is invisible but unshakable. Let it remind you that freedom is not something you wait for, but something you are already creating, moment by moment, choice by choice. And when tomorrow comes, carry this clean pride with you, not as arrogance, but as assurance, as steadiness, as a quiet flame within. Now return to your breath. Let it slow, let it steady. Inhale fully, hold, exhale slowly. Again. Let each breath remind you that this body, this mind, this moment, they are tools, not burdens. You are here to use them wisely, to aim them toward good. Picture now a person in your life that challenges you, someone who tests your patience, your values, your peace. Don't resist the discomfort, just see them. Feel what comes up. Now ask, what do I control in this relationship? What is mine? What is not? Let go of your demand for them to be different. Let go of your belief that their approval determines your worth. Let go of your need to win, to be right, to be seen. Keep only what aligns with reason. Speak truth, act justly, and then release. You are not cold for doing this. You are clear. In a world that often confuses firmness with cruelty and clarity with coldness, it can feel harsh to draw boundaries, to say no, to refuse to bend simply to make others comfortable. But clarity is not cruelty. Clarity is honesty, and honesty is a form of respect for yourself and for those you meet. To live with clarity is to resist the temptation to blur the lines of truth for the sake of convenience or approval. It is to choose the harder path of principle over the easier path of appeasement. Others may accuse you of coldness because your decisions unsettle their expectations, but in reality, what you are practicing is the highest form of care. refusing to live in illusions, refusing to manipulate or be manipulated, refusing to betray what you know is right. The Stoic does not harden his heart. He sharpens his judgment. There is a difference. A hardened heart becomes unfeeling, unable to experience compassion, unable to open itself to beauty, friendship, or love. A sharpened judgment, on the other hand, allows the heart to stay open without being deceived. The Stoic is not blind to human need, nor indifferent to human suffering. He sees it clearly and feels it deeply, but he refuses to be swept away by sentimentality, by indulgence, by the kind of compassion that collapses into chaos because it lacks wisdom. His heart remains warm, but his judgment remains firm. He can comfort without enabling, forgive without excusing, and love without losing himself. This is not hardness. This is strength in its most human form. The distinction between kindness and people-pleasing is central to this way of being. People-pleasing masquerades as kindness, but it is driven by fear. Fear of rejection, fear of conflict, fear of disapproval. It gives not because it truly wants to give, but because it cannot bear the discomfort of another's displeasure. True kindness, however, is free of this fear. It arises from love, not anxiety. It can say yes, but it can also say no. It can comfort, but it can also confront. To confuse kindness with people-pleasing is to dilute both. It leaves you depleted and others misled. The Stoic sees through this confusion. He knows that genuine kindness sometimes disappoints others in the short term because it refuses to indulge falsehoods or encourage weakness. Yet in the long term, such kindness is the only kind that strengthens both giver and receiver. The same is true of love and dependency. Dependency masquerades as love, but it is built on need, on grasping, on the fear of being alone. It demands, it clings, it seeks to control or be controlled. Love, in its true form, is different. It is a choice, not a compulsion. It does not erase individuality, but celebrates it. It gives freely without demanding repayment, and it receives without greed. To confuse love with dependency is to turn something sacred into something suffocating. The Stoic understands this distinction. He can love deeply, but without losing his freedom. He can be devoted, but not enslaved. He can cherish another, but without making that person the condition of his own peace. Love rooted in virtue is expansive and liberating. Dependency, masquerading as love, is narrow and suffocating. Virtue itself is not always accompanied by applause. Often it feels lonely because it requires you to step away from the crowd, to resist the easy compromises others rush into. To live by virtue is to refuse shortcuts, to decline invitations to corruption, to say no when everyone else says yes. The world often mistakes this refusal for arrogance, detachment, or coldness. In truth, it is clarity. And while this clarity can feel isolating, it is never empty. For within it lies the quiet company of your own conscience, the inner assurance that you are living in harmony with what is right. The applause of the crowd may be absent, but the approval of your own soul is present. And that is a deeper companionship than fleeting popularity could ever provide. The Stoic knows that virtue may feel lonely, but it is never empty because virtue aligns him with the order of things, with nature itself. Loneliness arises when we feel cut off from meaning, from belonging, from truth. But virtue is belonging. Belonging to the larger whole, belonging to the flow of life that transcends individual whims. When you live by reason and integrity, you find yourself at home in the universe, even if you stand apart from others. You may walk alone down the streets of men, but within you walks the company of timeless wisdom, the companionship of all who have lived and loved with clarity before you. You are never truly alone when you walk in virtue, because you are accompanied by truth. This path requires courage. It is easier to harden your heart and feel nothing, easier to chase approval through people-pleasing, easier to confuse dependency with love and lose yourself in another. These require no discipline, only surrender to impulse. But to live with clarity requires vigilance. It requires you to sharpen your judgment daily, to test your motives, to ask whether your kindness is genuine or only fear, whether your love is free or merely need, whether your actions arise from principle or pressure. It requires the strength to endure misunderstanding, the patience to stand firm when others waver, and the humility to admit when you fall short. And yes, you will fall short. No one embodies virtue perfectly. Even the great Stoics admitted their struggles, their inconsistencies, their failures. The difference lies not in perfection, but in persistence. The Stoic sharpens his judgment not once, but continually, returning again and again to the path when he strays. He does not measure himself against the impossible standard of flawlessness, but against the ever-present question: am I living according to reason, to principle, to virtue? If the answer is no, he adjusts, he learns, he grows. This humility protects him from pride and keeps his heart open. To outsiders, this practice may still appear cold. They may see only the refusals, the boundaries, the discipline, and not the love that animates them. They may not understand that it takes more compassion to say a hard truth than to offer a comforting lie. They may not see that it takes more love to allow another their freedom than to cling to them out of fear. But the Stoic cannot live by appearances. He lives by truth, even when truth is misunderstood. His warmth may not always appear in softness, but it appears in strength, the strength to act justly, to care wisely, to love without chains. The world does not need more hardened hearts. It does not need more people who have shut themselves off from feeling in order to survive. What it needs are people with open hearts and sharpened judgment, people who can love without being enslaved by love, who can be kind without being consumed by fear, who can be principled without being arrogant. This is the example the Stoic offers. His path is not easy, but it is necessary. For without clarity, kindness becomes weakness, love becomes possession, and virtue becomes hollow. With clarity, each of these finds its true form. So remember, you are not cold for doing this. You are clear. Clarity is a gift to yourself and to others. It protects you from self-betrayal and protects others from falsehood. It allows you to love more freely, to act more justly, to live more fully. It may separate you from the crowd at times, but it will never leave you empty. For clarity aligns you with virtue, and virtue is the most inexhaustible companion you will ever know. Now visualize yourself in the face of a future challenge, a disappointment, a loss, not to fear it, but to prepare for it. This is premeditatio malorum, the Stoic practice of rehearsing difficulty, not to become pessimistic, but to become unshakable. See it clearly. What will you do if you fail? If you are misunderstood? If something breaks? Will you collapse? Or will you return to yourself, breathe, and say, "This too is part of nature. I will endure it with character"? That's who you are training to be. Feel that strength now, not bravado, not denial, a steady, calm readiness, the kind that doesn't need certainty, only clarity of values. You don't need to know what will happen. You only need to know how you will meet it. As you rest deeper into stillness, let your inner dialogue soften. You are not your thoughts. You are not your past. You are not your wounds. You are the one watching, the one choosing, the one returning. Again and again, without drama, without noise, with dignity. There is nothing left to hold tonight, nothing left to control, nothing left to become. The endless grasping, the relentless striving, the constant effort to bend life into shapes it refuses to take, all of it falls away in this moment. What remains is simple, almost too simple for the restless mind to accept. Your breath, your soul, your reason. That is all you've ever needed. That is all you will ever need. To recognize this truth is to step out of the storm of desire and into the calm of being. It is to realize that the race you have been running has no finish line, because the prize you have sought was always already within you. We spend so much of life clutching at things we believe will save us: possessions, achievements, relationships, recognition. Each one promises to anchor us, to give us security, to finally make us feel complete. Yet every one of them slips through our fingers in time. Possessions decay, achievements are forgotten, relationships change, recognition fades. What we thought would last proves fragile. And so we grasp again, reaching for the next promise, the next illusion, the next thing we imagine will give us the solidity we crave. But tonight, in this quiet, the futility of all that clutching is clear. There is nothing left to hold, because there was never anything outside yourself that could have secured you. The security you longed for was always in your own capacity to breathe, to reflect, to live with reason. Control is another illusion we chase. We plot, plan, scheme, and strive to master every variable of life, as if certainty were a prize that effort could purchase. But control is always partial, always temporary, always slipping beyond our grasp. The truth is that life does not bend to our demands. It unfolds according to forces larger than us. To believe we control it is to exhaust ourselves in futility, resisting what we cannot change. Tonight, let that resistance fall away. Accept what is, without struggle, without demand. What remains when control is surrendered is not chaos, as the fearful mind imagines, but peace. The peace of no longer fighting battles that cannot be won. The peace of turning inward to the domain that has always been yours, your breath, your soul, your reason. And what of becoming? From childhood we are told that life is a ladder, a series of stages to climb, become successful, become admired, become accomplished, become more than you are now. We internalize this story until we no longer know how to rest in the present. We live as if life were rehearsal, as if meaning lies only in what we will one day become. But every horizon recedes as we approach it. No matter how high we climb, the sense of insufficiency remains. Tonight, release the pressure to become. There is nowhere else to arrive, no higher self waiting to be discovered at the end of some distant path. You are not unfinished clay waiting for perfection. You are alive, here, breathing. That is enough. To stop becoming and simply be is to rediscover the freedom you lost in chasing illusions. Your breath is the first reminder of this freedom. It anchors you in the present, steady and faithful, asking nothing of you but attention. You inhale, you exhale, and in that rhythm lies proof of life, proof of sufficiency. Every fear, every regret, every anxious projection into the future fades when you rest in the simple act of breathing. Your breath does not belong to the past or the future. It exists only now. To attend to it is to return home to yourself, to discover that life has always been here, waiting in this simple rhythm beneath all your striving. Your soul, too, is always here. Not the soul described in doctrines or clothed in dogma, but the inner life that perceives, feels, and endures. The soul is the witness, the quiet presence beneath thought and sensation, the thread of continuity through every season of change. You have doubted yourself, betrayed yourself, even abandoned yourself, yet the soul has remained patient and steadfast, waiting for your return. When all else is stripped away, when titles, possessions, and roles dissolve, the soul remains. To touch it is to realize that you are more than the shifting circumstances of your life. You are the one who experiences them, the one who endures them, the one who remains when they pass. And then there is reason, not cold calculation, but the clarity that allows you to see what is within your power and what is not. Reason aligns you with reality, freeing you from the tyranny of illusion. It teaches you to act where you can and accept where you cannot. It guides you to live with justice, with moderation, with integrity. Reason is the compass that allows you to walk through the world without being lost in its chaos. It does not eliminate suffering, but it reframes it, turning pain into instruction, loss into perspective, and obstacles into opportunities for growth. To hold fast to reason is to anchor yourself in truth when emotions threaten to sweep you away. Together, breath, soul, and reason form a trinity of sufficiency. They are not separate tools, but different expressions of the same truth, that you already possess what you need to live with dignity and peace. The breath grounds you in the present, the soul reminds you of your enduring essence, and reason guides your actions toward what is noble. When you see this clearly, you stop searching outside yourself for completion. You realize that you were never lacking. You were only distracted. The world will always tempt you to forget this. It will present new desires to chase, new fears to resist, new standards to measure yourself against. It will whisper that you are not enough until you buy, achieve, or become something more. But tonight, you see through the lie. You see that the endless cycle of striving has never delivered peace, only exhaustion. The peace you sought was always here, waiting beneath the noise, in the quiet simplicity of being. This recognition does not mean that life becomes passive or empty. On the contrary, it infuses life with deeper meaning. When you are no longer enslaved by control or becoming, you can act freely, with integrity, not out of desperation, but out of love. You can pursue goals not because you need them to complete you, but because they express who you already are. You can engage with others not to fill a void in yourself, but to share the fullness you have discovered within. Actions rooted in sufficiency are lighter, freer, and more authentic than those rooted in lack. And so tonight, you let go. You stop holding, stop controlling, stop becoming. You rest in what remains, your breath, your soul, your reason. You recognize that this is enough. It has always been enough. You realize that meaning is not something you will one day discover, but something you generate moment by moment, simply by living in alignment with what is already within you. You realize that the true task of life is not to accumulate, but to return again and again to the simplicity of being. When tomorrow comes, the noise of the world will rise again. Demands, distractions, and illusions will try to reclaim your attention. But tonight, in this stillness, you remember, and in remembering you are free. Let the silence deepen now. Let it stretch across the room, across your body, across your mind. Do not rush to fill it with words, with explanations, with noise. Silence is not absence, it is presence. It is the ground beneath all sound, the space in which life unfolds. When you allow silence to deepen, you discover that it has a texture, a weight, a fullness. It is not something to be feared or avoided. It is something to be entered into gently, the way you might step into a calm sea. Silence holds you if you let it. It surrounds you with something ancient, steady, unchanging. You are not lost in it. You are found in it. We often mistake silence for emptiness. We imagine that if nothing is being said, nothing is happening. Yet the deepest truths often arrive in silence. Words can point to them, but words cannot contain them. A seed grows in silence beneath the soil. The stars move silently across the night sky. The heart of another person reveals itself in the unspoken spaces between conversations. Silence is never empty. It is full of truth, full of meaning, full of presence. To enter silence is to return to what is most real, to remember that beyond the noise of thought and the clamor of the world, there is a deeper current always flowing. You do not need to fill the space. This is the hardest lesson for a restless mind. We are trained to occupy every moment, to fill every gap with activity, to drown out quiet with distraction. We scroll, we talk, we consume, we plan, as if emptiness were a danger we must avoid. Yet when you stop filling, when you let the space be, you discover that it was never empty at all. The silence was always waiting to reveal itself, but only to those willing to dwell in it. To dwell in silence is to trust it, to believe that you do not need constant stimulation to be alive, that you do not need constant reassurance to be safe. In silence, you are enough. To dwell in silence is not to retreat from life, but to encounter it more deeply. Noise scatters attention. Silence gathers it. Noise distracts. Silence focuses. Noise agitates. Silence soothes. When you dwell in silence, you notice what was hidden, the rhythm of your own breath, the subtle rise and fall of emotion, the small yet profound beauty of being alive in this very moment. Silence does not ask you to abandon life, but to enter into it more fully, with awareness, with presence, with love. To sleep in silence is to surrender to its embrace. Sleep cannot be forced. It comes when you release control, when you stop grasping at wakefulness or worrying about tomorrow. Silence prepares the way for this surrender. It soothes the nervous system, quiets the restless mind, and reminds you that rest is not something you earn, but something you allow. When you sleep in silence, you do more than recover your strength. You return to the rhythm of nature itself, to the cycle of renewal woven into your being. In silence, you discover that rest is not emptiness but fullness. The fullness of being restored, of being carried, of being held. And when you wake in silence, the world is new again. The morning light has not yet been drowned by noise, and you can feel the freshness of the day in your very breath. Waking in silence allows you to carry its truth into the hours ahead. Before the rush begins, before the demands crowd in, you are reminded of the stillness that underlies it all. Silence becomes not just a place you visit, but a ground you carry with you. Even in the midst of noise, you can return to it. Even in chaos, you can remember the quiet center. To wake in silence is to rise with clarity, with calm, with the assurance that peace is always available if you are willing to return to it. Silence reveals what noise conceals. In noise, we can hide from ourselves, from our fears, from our desires, from our pain. Silence removes the disguise. It holds up a mirror, showing us not only our shadows, but also our strengths. It confronts us with what we often avoid, yet it also comforts us with what we have always longed to remember. It teaches us that truth is not something we manufacture through endless words and explanations, but something that emerges when we stop running. To face silence is to face yourself. To accept silence is to accept life as it is. This acceptance is not resignation, but freedom. When you dwell in silence, you are no longer enslaved to the compulsion to prove, to explain, to justify. You can simply be. You can let go of the exhausting need to shape every perception, to win every argument, to control every outcome. Silence teaches you that nothing is required for you to be worthy of existence. You already are. This realization is not dramatic. It is subtle, but it changes everything. Once you have found yourself in silence, you carry a peace that noise cannot steal. Silence also teaches love. Words are important, but love is often clearest when words fall away. A quiet presence beside someone you cherish can speak more deeply than endless speech. The silence of a shared gaze, the silence of holding hands, the silence of sitting together without demand. These are the moments where love is most real. To cultivate silence within yourself is to become more capable of love, for you no longer need to dominate the space with noise. You can listen, you can notice, you can attend. Love grows in silence because silence makes room for another to exist fully, without interruption, without distraction. To live with silence is not to avoid sound, but to place it in its rightful context. Music needs silence for its notes to have meaning. Speech needs silence for its words to be heard. Life itself needs silence for its patterns to emerge. Without silence, everything collapses into chaos. With silence, everything finds rhythm. This is why silence feels so full. It is not absence but presence, the background that makes all things possible. So let the silence deepen now. Let it stretch, not as a void, but as a fullness that surrounds you. Trust that in it you are not lost but found. You are not diminished but expanded. You are not empty but whole. Tonight, dwell in silence, sleep in it, and tomorrow, wake in it. Carry it with you as a hidden strength, as a quiet companion, as a reminder that beneath all noise, all striving, all change, there is always this silence, steady and eternal, waiting for you to return. You are doing the work, not later, now. Not loudly, quietly. And this quiet work will carry you farther than any moment of intensity. This is the kind of strength the world can't see, but your soul knows, and it thanks you for it. Let this be your final thought. There is no greater peace than knowing you live today by principle, and that tomorrow you will begin again, not with noise, but with stillness, not with force, but with presence, not with fear, but with truth. And now, sleep. Not to escape life, but to return to it renewed. You have walked the path today, you have reflected, you have realigned, and now you rest, free, aware, complete. You are still. You are ready. You are home. You have walked far tonight. Not in miles, but in meaning. You have entered the inner temple where few dare to go, the quiet place where no masks survive. And there, in the stillness, you remembered who you are, what matters, what endures. Most people chase peace in the world. They seek it in achievement, applause, comfort, and control. They imagine that if they can accumulate enough accomplishments, if they can win the admiration of others, if they can surround themselves with comfort, or if they can finally control all the variables of life, then peace will come. This is the common dream, passed from one generation to the next, reinforced by culture, advertising, and social pressure. The belief that peace is something out there, waiting to be seized once the right conditions are met. Yet again and again, even those who appear to succeed in this pursuit discover its emptiness. The applause fades, the comfort becomes routine, control proves an illusion. What was sought as peace reveals itself as only temporary relief. Underneath, the same restlessness remains. But you have learned tonight that true peace begins elsewhere. It does not begin in the external conditions of life, but in the internal conditions of the soul. Peace is not a prize given by the world for your performance. It is a posture you cultivate from within. It begins not in achievement, but in clarity, not in applause, but in self-mastery, not in control, but in acceptance. This realization is not a retreat from life, but a return to reality. It is an end to the futile chase and the beginning of something more grounded and lasting. Clarity is the first soil from which true peace grows. Most of our agitation comes not from the facts of life, but from our confusion about them, from our assumptions, expectations, and illusions. We think people owe us things they do not. We think the world should operate by rules it does not follow. We think control is possible where it is not. This confusion creates constant friction between our wishes and reality, and friction breeds suffering. Clarity removes the fog. It allows you to see things as they are, not as you wish them to be. It reminds you of what is within your power and what is not. It strips away illusions so that you no longer waste energy on impossible battles. With clarity, Even pain can be borne more easily because you are no longer adding to it with resistance or misinterpretation. Clarity turns chaos into understandable patterns, and in understanding, you find calm. In choosing your response, you discover the second foundation of peace. You cannot always choose your circumstances, but you can always choose your response. This is not just a philosophical idea, but a daily practice. Each time something unexpected happens, a harsh word, a sudden loss, a change in plans, you face a fork in the road. You can react blindly, letting anger, fear, or despair dictate your behavior, or you can pause, breathe, and choose. This pause is the seed of freedom. It is the moment where the external world ends and your inner power begins. The more you practice it, the stronger it grows, until even in moments of crisis, you can remain composed enough to decide rather than simply react. This ability transforms life. You stop being a victim of circumstance and become an agent of your own character. Living by reason rather than reaction deepens this transformation. Reaction is easy, automatic, and often destructive. It is driven by impulse, ego, and unexamined emotion. Reason, by contrast, is deliberate. It weighs facts, considers consequences, and acts in alignment with values rather than moods. To live by reason is not to become cold or robotic, but to integrate your emotions with your higher judgment. It is to let your feelings inform you without allowing them to control you. Reason gives you a vantage point above the swirl of impulse, from which you can see more clearly and act more justly. Each time you choose reason over reaction, you build a stronger inner foundation, and peace takes deeper root. By principle, not pressure, this is the final anchor. The world will always exert pressure on you to conform, to please, to perform, to compromise what you know is right. If you let external pressure dictate your actions, you may win temporary approval, but you will lose your inner steadiness. Principles are the compass that keeps you aligned even when storms rage around you. They are not rigid dogmas, but chosen commitments, your deliberate answer to the question of what matters most. To live by principle is to decide in advance who you are and what you stand for, so that when pressure comes, you are not tossed about by it. This is not always easy. It may cost you comfort, convenience, or applause, but it gives you something greater. The quiet strength of integrity, the ability to look at yourself without shame or confusion. This is where true peace arises. Not from everything going your way, but from knowing that whatever happens, you can meet it with clarity, choice, reason, and principle. It is not a peace that depends on good fortune, for good fortune can vanish. It is not a peace that depends on other people's approval, for their approval is fickle. It is a peace that comes from self-mastery, from aligning your inner life with what is enduring rather than what is temporary. This kind of peace does not make life easy, but it makes life steady. It gives you the strength to endure hardship without despair, to enjoy success without arrogance, to face uncertainty without panic. This is not an abstract ideal, but a daily practice. Each moment offers you a chance to return to clarity, to choose your response, to act from reason, to hold to your principles. You will not do it perfectly. No one does. But each time you try, you weaken the hold of old habits and strengthen the muscle of self-mastery. Over time, the practice becomes your nature. You stop reaching outward for peace and begin to carry it within you. Tonight, you have glimpsed this truth. Perhaps it came in a moment of stillness or in the recognition of how much of your energy has been wasted in chasing what cannot satisfy. Perhaps it came as a quiet realization that the freedom you long for has been in your power all along. Whatever the path, the destination is the same. The recognition that true peace begins not with the world, but with you. This recognition is the first step of a lifelong path. not a path of withdrawal from life, but of deeper engagement with it, grounded in wisdom rather than illusion. Tomorrow the world will be the same. People will still compete for applause. Control will still prove elusive. Comfort will still be fleeting. But you will be different. You will carry within you the memory of tonight's lesson, that peace is a posture, not a prize. And each time you return to that posture, each time you choose clarity over confusion, response over reaction, reason over impulse, principle over pressure, you will be building a sanctuary within yourself, a sanctuary no one can take from you. This is the quiet revolution of a human life. While others chase peace in the world, you cultivate it at the source. While others look outward, you look inward. While others wait for conditions to change, you change your relationship to conditions. In doing so, you discover that the peace you sought was never elsewhere. It was always here, waiting for you to live it. There is nothing more powerful than a soul at peace with reality, not in denial of pain, not in resistance to life, but in full presence. A calm soul says, "Whatever comes, I will meet it. Whatever is lost, I will accept it. Whatever I have, I will use it well." That is freedom. The Stoics called this living according to nature, not nature outside, but nature within. To live according to your own highest purpose, not drifting with impulse, not enslaved to fear, but acting with intention. And when you fall as you will, you begin again without self-pity, without delay. So much of life is noise, so much of it is illusion, but here in this silence, you've found what is real, and it is enough. You don't need more advice, you don't need more things. You need to remember that your only task is to align, to hold the line of virtue, gently but firmly, no matter what happens. Think now of your breath, how it flows in and out without force, how it sustains you without demand, how it reminds you of the simplest rhythm of existence. You do not command your breath to appear, it comes to you. You do not beg it to return, it arrives again and again. It is both fragile and faithful, delicate yet enduring, always with you until your final moment. To bring your attention to your breath is to rediscover life in its most elemental form. The inhale is receiving, the exhale is releasing, and between them is the reminder that being alive is already enough. The breath carries no arrogance, no anxiety, no agenda. It simply is. And in learning from it, you begin to see how your life too can flow with the same ease, responsive, not reactive, intentional, not impulsive. Most of the turmoil in human life comes from our attempt to force things that were never meant to be forced. We grip too tightly to what we fear losing. We push too hard against what we cannot change. We rush too fast toward what we cannot yet reach. In doing so, we make life heavier than it needs to be. Breath teaches a different rhythm. It asks for no gripping, no pushing. It asks only for presence, the willingness to notice what is already happening. When you are present enough to notice your breath, you realize how much of your life you have been living elsewhere, lost in regrets of the past, anxious projections of the future, endless chatter of the mind. The breath pulls you back to now, reminding you that this moment, the one unfolding as you inhale and exhale, is the only one you ever truly have. To live like the breath is to live responsively, not reactively. Reaction is the quick flare of ego, the reflex of fear or anger or desire. It is impulsive, unconsidered, often regretted. Response is slower, calmer, deliberate. It does not ignore emotion but places it in context, allowing reason to guide action rather than being dragged along by impulse. Just as breath responds naturally to exertion or stillness, deepening when you climb a hill, slowing when you rest, so can you adjust to the circumstances of life without losing your center. A reactive life is chaotic, always pulled off balance by the next stimulus. A responsive life is steady, flexible, rooted in awareness. Impulse is the great thief of peace. It urges you to speak before you think, to spend before you count, to grasp before you reflect. Impulse promises satisfaction, but often delivers regret. Intention, by contrast, is the quiet architect of meaning. It asks not, "What do I feel like doing in this moment?" but "What aligns with who I want to be?" To live intentionally is to let your values set the rhythm of your actions, the way the breath sets the rhythm of your body. It is not a denial of spontaneity, but a deeper form of spontaneity, one grounded in self-awareness, where your freedom is not the freedom to be carried away by impulse, but the freedom to choose with clarity. Notice how the breath does not cling. Each exhale is a letting go, a release of what no longer serves. If breath clung to the air it drew in, it would suffocate. Life works the same way. To grip too tightly to people, possessions, outcomes is to choke your own spirit. The tighter you hold, the more anxious you become, for everything in the world is temporary. Breath teaches the art of release. Take what is given, let it nourish you, then let it go. Trust that more will come. The same lesson applies to your experiences. Receive them, let them shape you, then release them without bitterness or fear. Just as the lungs empty to make space for new air, the soul must empty to make space for new growth. Breath also teaches patience. It cannot be rushed. Try to force it and you lose its natural rhythm. Try to hold it indefinitely and you discover the limits of control. Breath moves at its own pace, and your role is not to dominate it, but to cooperate with it. Life, too, has its pace. Seasons arrive and depart. Growth unfolds gradually. Attempts to rush the process only bring frustration. The patient one, like the mindful breather, understands that everything comes in its time. This patience does not mean passivity. It means trust in the rhythm of becoming. You act when action is required, and you wait when waiting is wise, confident that life, like breath, will carry you forward. To listen to your breath is to rediscover the art of listening itself. In a noisy world, true listening has become rare. We listen not to understand, but to respond, not to receive, but to prepare our reply. Breath reminds us what it means to listen deeply, with presence and without agenda. As you attune to the sound of your own breathing, you realize how easily you overlook the subtleties around you. The tone beneath someone's words, the silence between them, the emotions unspoken. Listening is a discipline of presence. It requires the humility to quiet your inner noise so that the world can reveal itself. To live like the breath is to listen in this way, not to dominate conversations, not to impose yourself on reality, but to notice, to attend, to honor what is before you. Guidance too comes from breath. Though it flows naturally, you can gently guide it, slowing it to calm your mind, deepening it to steady your body, bringing attention to it to anchor your presence. In the same way, you can guide your life. Not by gripping or forcing, but by nudging, adjusting, orienting yourself toward what matters. Guidance is not control, it is influence. You cannot command every outcome, but you can guide your choices, your habits, your perspective. Breath shows that gentle guidance can transform experience. A single deep inhale can soften anger. A steady exhale can reduce fear. Likewise, a single intentional choice can redirect the course of your life. Consider how easily the breath is taken for granted. You draw it in thousands of times a day without thought, without thanks. Only when it falters, when illness or exertion reminds you of its fragility, do you realize its importance. Much of life is the same. We overlook the ordinary until it is threatened or gone. To live with awareness of your breath is to practice gratitude for the ordinary, to see that peace is not found in extraordinary experiences, but in the simple rhythm of existence. Gratitude transforms not the facts of life, but the way you perceive them. Breath is your constant reminder that the most essential gifts are the ones most easily ignored. Breath is also the bridge between body and mind. It reflects your state of being, rapid when anxious, slow when calm, shallow when distracted, deep when present. By attending to it, you influence not only the body, but the mind. In the same way, the choices you make in daily life are the bridge between your external circumstances and your inner state. Just as mindful breathing calms the body, mindful living calms the soul. When you choose presence over distraction, patience over haste, intention over impulse, you regulate the rhythm of your life. And so, your breath becomes your teacher. It shows you how to live without gripping, how to release what you cannot keep, how to trust in the rhythm of things, how to be present enough to notice, to listen, to guide. The lesson is simple, yet profound. You do not need to force life into submission to find peace. You need only to cooperate with its rhythm as you do with your breath. This cooperation is not passivity, it is wisdom. It is the difference between fighting the current and learning to swim with it. Tonight, as you breathe, you remember. You remember that peace is not a distant goal, but a present possibility. You remember that clarity comes not from controlling everything, but from noticing what is already within your grasp. You remember that the same breath that has sustained you since your first moment will sustain you until your last, asking nothing but presence in return. To live like the breath is to live lightly yet fully, gently yet powerfully, simply yet deeply. It is to discover that what you sought in struggle was always present in stillness. And tomorrow, when the world presses its demands upon you again, you will carry this lesson. You will know that you do not need to grip, you do not need to push, you do not need to chase. You need only to breathe, to be present, to guide yourself with intention. The rest will follow. In this last stretch of night, let your body sink. Let the weight of the day release its grip. Let the muscles that carried you through the hours soften, unburdened by the tasks they once held. You have done enough. You have carried enough. Now is the time to surrender, not in defeat, but in trust. Trust that rest is not a luxury, but a rhythm, a sacred counterpart to effort. Your body knows how to let go if only you allow it. Notice how gravity itself is an ally, drawing you down into the earth, reminding you that you do not always need to hold yourself up. There is mercy in this surrender, the mercy of being cradled by something larger than you, the mercy of remembering that you are not required to carry the world through the night. Let your hands rest. They have grasped, held, written, carried, built, touched. They have expressed both your will and your care, but now they ask for stillness. Open them, unclench them, let them rest upon the sheets as if they are small boats returning to shore. They do not need to hold anymore. The day has asked enough of them. To let your hands rest is to admit that you too can rest. You are not only what you do, not only the tasks you accomplish, not only the things you manage to hold. You are more than action. You are being itself. Tonight, your hands remind you of this truth, that worth does not depend on motion, that stillness is not failure but fullness, the fullness of simply existing without demand. Let your mind float gently like a leaf on still water. Imagine the thought body you carry, often so heavy with worries and plans, now becoming light enough to rest upon the surface. A leaf does not resist the water beneath it. It does not thrash or fight for balance. It rests, carried by what is greater, allowing itself to drift where the current wishes. Your mind too can rest this way. The still water is always there beneath the ripples of noise. It is the deep calm that underlies every storm of thought. By loosening your grip, by ceasing the endless wrestling, you allow your mind to float again. You allow it to remember that calm is its natural state, that the turbulence you often feel is only the surface, not the essence. If thoughts rise, let them pass. They will come as they always do, fragments of memory, shards of conversation, shadows of fear, sparks of desire. They will arrive unbidden, each one asking for attention. But you do not need to invite them in for long. You do not need to chase them down or fight them off. Let them pass as clouds pass across the sky. The sky does not cling to its clouds. It allows them to form and dissolve, knowing they are temporary. So too with thoughts. They are weather, not essence. They are visitors, not truth. You remain the sky itself, wide open, unbroken. If emotions visit, welcome them kindly, then let them go. Emotions are more insistent than thoughts. They arrive with weight, with heat, with texture. They sit in the chest, in the stomach, in the throat. They demand to be felt, and they should be felt. But they too are visitors. Do not slam the door on them. Do not clutch them to your chest as if they were your identity. Greet them as you would a traveler who comes to your home. Offer them kindness, offer them presence, and when their time is done, let them leave. For emotions, like all guests, are not meant to stay forever. They arise, they teach, they pass. What remains is the host, you, the one who receives them without being defined by them. You are not here to wrestle with the mind. The great mistake of the weary soul is to think that peace can be achieved by force, that clarity comes from fighting thoughts into submission, that calm is earned through conquest. But the more you wrestle, the more entangled you become. Wrestling gives energy to what you wish to release. Tonight, you are invited to lay down that struggle. You are not the gladiator of your mind. You are the witness, the companion, the gentle friend. To sit beside the mind is a radical act of love, for it requires no victory, only presence. You are here to sit beside it with love. Imagine your mind as a child who has grown restless from the day, full of questions, anxieties, excitements. To wrestle with the child is to escalate its restlessness. To sit beside it, to place a gentle hand on its shoulder, to listen without judgment, this is what soothes. Love is not about silencing, but about accepting. And in acceptance, calm is born. When you sit beside your mind with love, you acknowledge that it has been working for you all day, trying to protect you, trying to plan for you, trying to keep you safe. You thank it for its service, even if imperfect, and you invite it now to rest with you. In this posture of love, a new relationship begins. You stop treating your mind as a tyrant to obey or an enemy to defeat, and you begin to see it as a companion to care for. The mind is part of you, yet not all of you. It is a tool, not a master. When you love it, you neither indulge its every demand nor reject it harshly. You guide it gently, the way one might guide a friend who has lost their way in the dark. You say, "It is enough." You do not need to keep circling the same worries. You do not need to carry the whole burden of tomorrow tonight. Come, sit beside me in stillness. This practice is not escape. It is not denial of life's difficulties. It is a way of remembering that peace does not come from resolving every thought, answering every question, or erasing every fear. Peace comes from shifting your posture, from wrestling to sitting, from judgment to love, from striving to presence. When you change the way you meet your mind, you change the way you meet your life. And in this last stretch of night, as you let go, as you rest, you taste the freedom that has always been within reach. The freedom of being, without demand, without condition. The night itself teaches you this. Darkness does not fight the light, it receives it and transforms it. Silence does not resist sound, it gives it space to exist. Stillness does not deny movement, it makes movement possible. So too with you. When you stop resisting, when you stop wrestling, when you stop clinging, you become spacious enough for life to move through you with ease. You discover that you are not defined by the noise within, but by the vastness that can hold it all. And when sleep finally comes, it will not be forced. It will arrive like a tide returning to shore, drawn naturally to the space you have created. Rest is not something you achieve, it is something you allow. Tonight, by letting your body sink, your hands rest, your mind float, your thoughts pass, your emotions come and go, and by sitting beside it all with love, you allow rest to find you. You remember that you are not here to control the night, but to trust it. You are not here to conquer your mind, but to accompany it. You are not here to prove your worth, but to remember your being. This is the gift of the last stretch of night. A gift not of answers, but of presence. A gift not of conquest, but of companionship. A gift not of striving, but of surrender. And when the morning comes, you will rise, not because you forced yourself into calm, but because you allowed yourself to rest in love. The Stoic does not chase sleep. He prepares for it, just as he prepares for hardship or loss or death, not with fear, but with understanding. He says, "I have done what I could today. The rest is not mine. I release it." That is what you are doing now, releasing. Softly, fully. You have looked at yourself tonight, not the surface self, not the image, but the real one. And what you saw, courage, honesty, effort, is enough. You don't need to be anyone else. You don't need to become something other than what you already are beneath the noise. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not too late. You are here. And that is the only place from which wisdom grows. Not in the past, not in fantasies of a better you, but right here, in the quiet truth of who you already are. Let your breath be your only anchor now, slow, present, unforced, and know that every time you return to it, you are practicing philosophy, not in theory, but in life. Because Stoicism is not an idea, it is a way of being, and you are living it now. Sleep is not surrender, it is trust. Trust that the world will go on without your worry. Trust that your soul is wiser than your fear. Trust that your practice is working in silence, shaping you from within. You do not need to rush this. Let rest do its quiet work. You've heard the voices of Marcus, Seneca, Epictetus, not as ancient names, but as companions, guides, mirrors. And now their words are your own. Not to memorize, to embody, in the way you breathe, in the way you rise, in the way you choose. And when you wake, whether in an hour or in the morning, you will wake with something new, not dramatic, not loud, but steady, a quiet center, a clearer gaze, a lighter grip on the world. That is the fruit of your practice. That is what you have earned here tonight. So sleep now, let go now. There is nothing more to prove, nothing more to plan, nothing more to fix. You have met yourself, and that is everything. You are the citadel, you are the calm, you are the choice, you are free.